Chapter 504. Near Connecticut University, Smith stopped the car by the roadside and turned to Lu Cheng. I have to go back as soon as possible to settle the remaining matters. Don't worry, there won't be any surveillance footage left behind. Okay. Lu Cheng nodded, unbuckled his seatbelt and got out of the car. He had taken 2 steps when he heard Harding call out, "Hey!" "Oh. What?" Lu Cheng looked back and saw that Smith had already rolled down the car window, leaned over and stuck his head out. His eyes were pained but sincere. His voice was low and slow as he said, "Thank you." Lu Cheng smiled and shook his head. Without saying anything, he turned around and walked towards the school gate that he was used to going in and out of. With the appearance of the butcher and his revenge, Smith could finally vent the pain and suffering that had accumulated over the past 5 years. Lu Cheng had already taken off his black-rimmed glasses and returned to his usual appearance. He went to the supermarket and bought a bottle of water. He was so bored that he first chilled it and then heated it again until Yenjika's lessons were over and she was about to leave school. Throughout this process, he wasn't as bored as he appeared to be. He had been seriously summarizing his experience in the battle with Joseph. Although he had obtained an overwhelming advantage in this battle, chaining his opponent to the point of death, and was unable to unleash the various miraculous and tyrannical aspects of the Jiruga sect, he could look at it from a different perspective. For example, if he were to be ambushed and fall into a passive state, how would he turn the situation around and break out of his predicament? For example, if Joseph were to change his response to a certain choice, would it have been better for him? If that was the case, how should he continue to exert sufficient pressure? A lost battle required contemplation, but so did a victorious battle. And this was the first battle after Lu Cheng's breakthrough with the ice mirror. With it as the core of the battle, there was still much to be summarized. Holding a bottle of mineral water with ice cubes floating in his hand, Lu Cheng stood at the school gate of Connecticut University, waiting for Ko and Aunt Du to come out. At this moment, Huang Shiwen, with her chubby cheeks and gorgeous face, was chatting and laughing with a few girls she was close with as they rushed towards the school gate. They were going to have a wild party tonight. As her gaze wandered, Huang Shiwen suddenly saw a familiar figure and couldn't help but tremble. He was the man of the hour in Songqing University. The news of him and Lin Kei winning the national championship was still a hot topic in the school forum. More importantly, he was Yenjika's boyfriend. Lu Cheng? Why is he here? Huang Shiwen looked at the well-defined, masculine face with a hint of gentleness. Her heart felt as if it had sunk into an ice cave, enduring the cold of dozens of degrees below zero. He hasn't broken up with Yenjika? Did Yenjika badmouth me in front of him? Will he hit me? Is it too late to call the police now? I heard that people who practice martial arts are impulsive. Huang Shiwen's thoughts surged, and all of them deviated in a bad direction. The more she thought about it, the more scared she became. With Lu Cheng's rumored strength, even if the police arrived, they wouldn't be able to stop him. Ask Wolf for help? He was the apprentice of the senior martial artist Joseph's student. Even though he definitely wouldn't be able to defeat Lu Cheng, he could use Mr. Joseph's name to scare him off. What am I thinking? I haven't done anything bad to Yenjika, and I've been inviting her to parties out of kindness to broaden her social circle. I have a clear conscience. Moreover, she was indeed very introverted, very antisocial, and very unsociable at Kingstown University. She also dressed like an old aunt. I wasn't wrong. I'm not afraid of Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng gazed at the entrance, his gaze sweeping past many figures as he searched for his little fairy. Suddenly he saw an Asian girl. Judging from her appearance, she should be Chinese. Huang Shiwen's calves suddenly trembled under his gaze. Beads of cold sweat formed on her forehead, and the back of her gauze skirt showed signs of being soaked. Lola, what's wrong? A girl beside her shouted the American name Huang Shiwen gave herself. Aye. Huang Shiwen couldn't form a sound. She anxiously tugged at her classmate, indicating that she wanted to take a detour to go home. There are quite a lot of fellow countrymen here. Lu Cheng thought casually. His eyes suddenly lit up, reflecting Yenjika's figure. Through her tied-up hair and big black-framed glasses, he saw her inner beauty. He smiled and walked up to her. He heard someone shouting Luala. It seemed that the Chinese girl just now had fainted. There are quite a lot of kind-hearted people. I will make a red scarf. Lu Cheng held Yenjika's left hand and took over her bag and sundries. He felt that his heart had really settled down and become unusually steady. It was as though he had returned to a warm and peaceful home. The residual emotions from his surprise attack on the Inhuman had completely dissipated. What's going on there? Yenjika looked curiously at the side which was surrounded by layers upon layers of people. I think a girl fainted. The weather changes drastically. It's easy to catch a cold if you're not careful. Lu Qing said whatever came to mind. He had already calmed down and his expression was relaxed. Yanjika vaguely saw that the surrounded girl had already woken up and was being carried away by kind-hearted people. She didn't care much and returned home with Lu Cheng. While waiting for Aunt Du to prepare dinner, she dragged the worrisome Cheng upstairs and sat on the edge of the bed. She coughed lightly, pursed her lips and deliberately kept a straight face. "Tell me, what bad things did you do in the afternoon?" Her eyes were bright and full of curiosity. "Cough, I went to catch a psychopathic murderer." Lu Qing summarized the main point. Psychopathic murderer? Yenjika's clear eyes widened. They were filled with confusion and doubt. All the guesses she made in the afternoon had come to nothing. You should have heard of Butcher, right?" Lu Qing asked. "He was a notorious criminal in Kingstown." "Yes, I've heard of him." Empress Dowager even summarized a few key areas where Butcher committed his crimes. "She told me not to go there for no reason. It's better to be safe than sorry." "You caught him? Do you know who he is?" Yenjika couldn't keep a straight face anymore. She was like a little girl who wanted to hear a story. Lu Qing walked to the girl's side and sat down. He nodded and said, "It's Joseph, a senior martial artist from the Jianghu sect. Didn't I sign up for the advanced course? When I was communicating with the gem to awaken my own spirit, I sensed the hidden bloodthirst of the grinder, which is Joseph. Originally, I didn't have any other evidence. If I went to him directly, I would easily become a criminal and be deported. That's why I didn't want to do it at first. Later, the head of the Secret Service, Smith, who was in charge of monitoring me, contacted me. His girlfriend, Sunny, was a victim of Butcher." Without waiting for Lu Qing to finish, Yenjika was stunned. She changed her position and blurted out, "There's a Secret Service monitoring you? Is there really a surveillance system?" "That's right, we'll also monitor when experts from other countries enter the country. Which do you want me to talk about first? Secret Service or Butcher?" Lu Qing was amused. Both. Yenjika had already let down her hair and removed her glasses. Her eyes were bright and clear. After answering, she suddenly let out an "Aya," and blurted out in relief, "Thank goodness we drew the curtains." Before she could finish, the girl shut her mouth. Her pretty face was as red as a peach, making Lu Cheng's heart skip a beat. He cleared his mind and answered firmly, "I've seen their surveillance footage. It only covers my activities outside. If Smith dares to peep, I'll let him know what it means to lose his memory from a beating." Seeing that Yenjika didn't want to talk about this topic, Lu Qing changed the topic and described the general situation. "Although Joseph is similar to an inhuman, I've improved recently. Moreover, it was a surprise attack, so subduing him was a sure thing. What I'm most worried about is actually the problem of cleaning up. I'm afraid that exposing my identity will bring you trouble. This is also why I didn't want to do it at first. However, with Smith around, it won't be a problem. As for Uncle Cole, he will definitely turn himself in. However, he doesn't know who I am and doesn't know me. Even if the Jianghu sect finds a corresponding superpower user, they won't be able to trace it back to me." Listening to Lu Cheng's tireless narration, she thought of the girls who were harmed by the demon Butcher, the pain that Cole and Smith had to endure, and the determination of that father who was willing to pay the price. Yenjika had mixed feelings. Her eyes reddened, filled with resentment and sympathy. Those poor innocent girls. That perverted criminal with no remorse. She suddenly reached out and patted Lu Cheng's shoulder. Biting her lip, she nodded seriously. "Cheng, you've done a great job. One of the main goals of my dream of practicing martial arts is to be a chivalrous and righteous swordsman. You fulfilled all my expectations in this regard." As she spoke, her voice gradually softened. However, she couldn't help but remind him at the end, "If the bad guy is stronger than you, just leave him alone for now." "I'm not stupid." Lu Qing laughed. Then he corrected the girl's perception of him. "Actually, I didn't look for Joseph because I hate evil and want to be a chivalrous person. This is only a small part of the reason." "Then what is it?" Yenjika blinked blankly. She couldn't think of a second reason. Lu Qing cleared his throat and said smugly, "Joseph's target is Joseph. Joseph's target is a girl with a pure and holy spirit. Although the possibility isn't high, I'm still afraid that he'll set his sights on you one day. Therefore, we have to take precautions and eliminate this hidden danger." He described the Connecticut criminal cleanup plan that he came up with blindly. Yenjika was stunned at first. Then she gradually calmed down. She pursed her lips and stared at Lu Qing with rippling eyes. When Lu Qing finished, she moved her arms and said in amusement, "You're really," she couldn't come up with a reason. She pretended to be wronged and looked at Lu Cheng with bright eyes. She bit her lower lip and said, "I've been impure for a long time. I've been tainted by you." "Haha, it's normal for married girls to be tainted." Lu Cheng laughed softly. Yenjika narrowed her eyes and picked up her phone. She leaned into her husband's arms and said, "Let me check if there are any reports." 10 seconds later she saw the news. She acted as a human translator and said, "The butcher that has plagued Connecticut for a decade has finally shown himself. A victim's father is a new superhero, Deliverman. Deliverman. Deliverman." "Ah?" Yenjika burst out laughing and stopped reading. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He was very dissatisfied with his superhero nickname. "Yes, very dissatisfied. It's not cool at all. P.S. There are too many people on the list this week. I can't even get into the top 15. Chapter 505. After laughing for a while, Yenjika raised her head and looked at the dissatisfied Lu Cheng. She deliberately frowned and said, "I remember you said you would be my personal delivery boy. Didn't you say you would only deliver food to me? You liar." As she spoke, the corners of her mouth curled up again, unable to keep a straight face. Lu Cheng reached out and held the girl's waist. He cleared his throat and laughed. "I didn't deliver takeout to Joseph. Don't tell me I should tell him. Sir, your severe warning has arrived, your Emperor Yen force has arrived, and the DF-21 you ordered has been launched? Cheng, I realize you're getting better at talking. Tell me, did you learn bad things from Talker?" Yenjika laughed and leaned comfortably in Lu Cheng's arms. She picked up her phone and read the rest of the news. When the police arrived, the living room of the villa was covered in blood. Joseph's body? She couldn't continue reading. She felt her appetite disappear instantly. Lu Cheng lowered his head and saw the few lines of words with his strong eyesight. Cole vented his pain and hatred to his heart's content. He drained Joseph's blood and dismembered his body. He even tried to chop it up and burn it, destroying everything beyond recognition. Lu Cheng sighed and clicked his tongue as he watched. At the same time, he was even more certain of the subsequent developments. If that was the case, the coroner probably wouldn't be able to discover that Joseph had been frozen. Pure explosions and flames were mostly controlled by experts. Cole also completely destroyed the villa's surveillance system. The experts couldn't recover the damage. Yenjika skipped the first part of the news and translated the following description. Cole truthfully confessed his crimes, but didn't mention the Deliverman. Even if the relevant personnel used superpowers to induce him, they couldn't find anything. We can make an outline of the Deliverman. He's good at computers and is a very good hacker. He can hack into the police system and cut off the connection between the alarm system and the police station. He's very good at fighting and is stronger than the veteran martial artist Joseph. He has the superpower to create explosions. He likes to dress up as a delivery boy. After reading, Yenjika pursed her lips and looked at Lu Cheng. She nodded, seriously, and said, "Based on what they listed, even your wife wouldn't recognize you. They're thinking too much?" Lu Cheng shook his head, amused. "That's for the best." As a person with a big heart, he had already forgotten that unimpressive nickname. At this time, Du Yin finished preparing dinner and urged them to go downstairs. Affected by the news, Yenjika only ate a little, while Lu Cheng ate a lot to make up for his previous consumption. After dinner, the girl turned on her computer and busied herself with reports. Lu Cheng took the menu, lit the table lamp, and sat beside her. Sometimes he would study cooking, sometimes he would look up news, sometimes he would watch videos of the Jiruga sect, and sometimes he would turn his head to admire the girl's soft and beautiful side profile. "Your report looks quite complicated." After a few glances he sighed. "Fortunately there's no rush. I'll hand it in next week. Right now, I'm just doing a simple preliminary research to facilitate tomorrow's group discussion." Yenjika tucked her hair behind her ear, picked up the cup and took a sip. She unlocked the screen of her phone and looked at the discussions in several groups. She blurted out, "The girl who fainted just now is Huang Shiwen." Huang Shiwen? How come she fainted? Lu Cheng had heard of this name before. He knew that she was a classmate of his little fairy and was in the same training program. She was good at socializing and often invited his wife to parties, which annoyed her since she didn't like such occasions. She turned from tactful evasions to outright rejections. Yenjika looked at her husband suspiciously. Seeing that he was sincere and didn't seem to be faking it, she shook her head and answered, "I don't know. Maybe it's because she has to play and study at the same time. She often stays up late and her health is deteriorating." Huang Shiwen fainted the moment Cheng showed up. "Could it be that he secretly used a secret technique to help me vent my anger?" No, I didn't say anything bad about Huang Shiwen to him. At most, I just complained that he was too warm and friendly. I couldn't stand it. Maybe Huang Shiwen had a guilty conscience and fainted after seeing Qing? While thinking, Yanjika made a guess and felt inexplicably good. This is good. I didn't cause any trouble and I feel like I vented my anger. Because there weren't many tasks, she was quite relaxed. From time to time, she would chat with Lu Qing and chat about other topics. When Lu Qing saw interesting news or videos, he would also share them with her for fun. This kind of learning scene was very warm and comfortable. The only problem was that the efficiency was too low. Yanjika didn't finish collecting the simple information until it was close to 9 o'clock. It's all your fault. She looked at the time and kicked Lu Qing lightly with her slipper-clad foot. You made me lose focus. Is this called fatale? Lu Qing laughed and made fun of himself. After flirting for a while, Yanjika suddenly heard her stomach growling. She looked up and said in an aggrieved tone, Qing, I'm hungry. As the exclusive delivery boy, it's time for you to show off. I didn't eat much for dinner because of that news. I promised to complete the task. Lu Qing took out his phone and searched for a nearby 24-hour restaurant. There weren't many restaurants in Connecticut. Only a few were open after 9 o'clock. Seeing that he was searching carefully, Yanjika's dimples appeared. She suggested excitedly, Do you want me to go with you? I haven't eaten supper since I came here. Okay, I'll drive. You have a driver's license here? Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. Of course, it's not hard to get a driver's license here. I followed Andu in August and passed the test. Awesome, right? Yanjika raised her chin proudly. I admire you the most. Lu Qing praised exaggeratedly. While they were in high spirits, the couple took the keys and drove out. They went straight to a 24-hour restaurant that Yanjika had heard about for a long time. It was famous for its local specialty pies. The night was hazy and the wind was blowing. It was quiet all around. The north of Connecticut was not as lively as the big cities. As the car sped up, Lu Qing had to remind Ku to stay steady and not step on the accelerator. After a while, a figure appeared at the intersection in front of them. He was wearing a black cloak and was dressed strangely. He was waving his arms to stop the car. What's going on? With her husband beside her, Yanjika was very brave. She stopped the car after muttering a few words and looked over in confusion. The cloaked man opened his mouth and spat out a string of words with some slang. Lu Qing was stunned. He only understood that the cloaked man was trying to say that there was danger ahead. When he communicated with Smith, he knew that Lu Qing was an outsider, so he would slow down and reduce his slang and non-standard grammar. What did he say? Lu Qing asked in a low voice. He said that the Black Forest area ahead is the slums. The security there is very bad. Robberies are common. Try not to go there during the day. It's more dangerous at night. He suggested that we take a detour. Yanjika translated dutifully and expressed her opinion. Although the surveillance network in America is very mature, due to various reasons, it's only limited to certain streets. For example, in the lower levels of the city, most of the devices are broken and most of them are in disrepair. After pausing for a second, she glanced at Lu Qing and whispered, I have the superhero, the deliverman, to protect me. I'm not afraid of bad security. After that, the couple looked at each other and smiled. They waved at the cloaked man outside. Thank you. Then Yanjika turned on the turn signal and drove to another road. I can't let their good intentions go to waste. The cloaked man nodded in satisfaction as he watched them drive away. He felt a sense of accomplishment. Oh yeah, why is he waiting there to remind people? Lu Qing muttered after a few seconds. Yanjika said with a smile, he said that he was a superhero. Although he was not strong and was not recognized by everyone, he always wanted to do something good within his power. Seeing that many people unknowingly entered the Black Forest area at night and suffered losses and even injuries, he stopped cars here every day to remind them. Lu Qing was touched by her words. He sighed with peace of mind. I think this superhero culture in the United States is quite interesting. Every country has its own unique characteristics. Yeah. Yanjika nodded in agreement. Then she frowned in confusion. But he's wearing a black cloak to stop cars. Other than people like us who would dare to stop at night. No wonder he said it wasn't effective. That makes sense. Lu Qing was stunned. Yanjika left in high spirits and returned home when it was 9:40 p.m. After a hearty meal, Yanjika returned home. Shower and sleep. The girl rested for a while, grabbed her pajamas and change of clothes and walked to the door. Before she left, she looked back at Lu Qing warily. Seeing that he didn't intend to follow her, she walked into the bathroom. Seriously, am I that perverted? Lu Qing laughed and shook his head. After a while, the sound of running water stopped. Yanjika came back with a towel wrapped around her head. Her nightdress tonight was slightly different from usual. It was a spaghetti strap style, revealing her delicate collarbones, beautiful shoulders and fair skin. Lu Qing was stunned when he saw it. I always wear this. I was too embarrassed to wear it in front of you before. Humph, you said that I'm a married girl. What's there to be afraid of? Yanjika forced herself to explain. Her cheeks were flushed because she had just taken a bath. It looks good. Lu Qing didn't answer her question. He walked over and volunteered, I'll help you dry your hair. Okay. Yanjika sat down, took off the wet towel and let Lu Qing dry her hair. Smelling the fragrance and lowering his head, he saw the breathtaking beauty. Droplets of water slid down her slender white neck and stopped at her delicate collarbone. Lu Qing couldn't hold himself back no matter how hard he tried. When her hair was only half dry, he kissed her. The girl moaned and softened in his arms. The room was full of romantic scenes. Going to bed on time became an extravagant hope. After a while, Lu Qing lay down with satisfaction and hugged Yanjika's trembling body. Applying what I've learned is pretty good, he thought with a smile. Yanjika paused for a few seconds, gritted her teeth and wrote 3 words on Lu Qing's chest. Big pervert. With Lu Qing's control of his body, he could easily recognize it. He read it out with a smile. Yanjika rolled her eyes at him and started writing again. Big hooligan. Lu Qing read it out proudly. Yanjika pursed her lips and moved her fingers again to write. Big idiot. Big idiot. Big hero, ha. Lu Qing read them one by one and turned his head to look at the girl. He found that Yanjika had already turned her head and looked to the side. In a dark corner of the street, Smith, who was on night shift, received a call from his superior. Any unusual movements from the target? Did he leave the surveillance? Asked the other side in a deep voice. Joseph was defeated by a new superhero. Every dangerous person in Connecticut was a suspect and had to be questioned. Smith answered without blushing or panting, No, he's very obedient. Very good. The superior didn't say anything else because he didn't think that Lu was suspicious. According to the available information, this dangerous person was no different from Joseph. The next morning, Lu Qing continued his training. After everything was done, he sent the girl to school and jogged to the Musashi martial arts gym. He planned to participate in the class as if nothing had happened. $5,000 can't be wasted. I'll go to the Dragon Punch dojo in the afternoon to see the legendary Zhu something. Chapter 506. On a Wednesday morning, the wind in Connecticut was mild and pleasant. Lu Qing jogged through the streets, occasionally looking up at the web-like surveillance cameras. He knew that Smith and the other agents were monitoring him. However, he could detect the devices and whether the cameras were aimed at him, but he couldn't determine whether they were aimed at him or not. It was even more impossible for him to detect where Smith and the rest were hiding. This was the difference between martial arts and modern technology. Nothing in this world is omnipotent. Too bad I wanted to knock on their car window and say hello to give them a scare. Lu Qing couldn't help but think mischievously. On the next street, Smith, who had changed his car, was drinking coffee and munching on a burger. Beside him, his subordinate was focused on the surveillance screen. After watching for a while, a young man with thin, blonde hair smiled casually. Boss, the target looked at the famous criminals and cases in Connecticut yesterday afternoon. The butcher was taken down in the afternoon. If you hadn't been keeping an eye on him, I would have suspected that he was the deliverer man. He went to challenge Joseph and let Cole take advantage of him. He had wanted to imitate Smith's use of cut and spar, but he couldn't remember the weird pronunciation. Smith calmly finished the rest of his coffee and replied with a smile. From the data of the target in the past month, he might be able to defeat Joseph, but he won't be able to subdue him. He won't even be able to cause significant damage to him. I think so too. The young man stroked his thin hair and muttered casually, I heard that there's a powerful hair tonic in China? Smith took the opportunity to change the topic. He didn't look guilty at all. He had hacked into a company last night and optimized the search results. When searching for information about the victim, Sunny, her boyfriend, was placed at the very end of the search results. The corresponding photo was also altered and deleted. It had been 5 years and most people's memories of this had faded. It was difficult for them to remember such an insignificant figure in the case. As long as the relationship between Smith and Sunny wasn't discovered, there wouldn't be any problems. The things I've worked hard to learn over the past 5 years have finally come in handy. Smith crumpled the food packaging into a ball, rolled down the car window, and threw it from afar, accurately sending it into the trash can. The entire process was escorted by a thread. The moment Lu Qing stepped into the Musashi martial arts gym, he could feel a stifling atmosphere. The instructors and students walking in and out of the gym either kept a straight face, remained silent, or whispered in each other's ears. After a few steps, just as he was about to turn the corner, he suddenly saw Olsen, the 2-meter-tall giant that he had met the day before. Olsen was approaching him. His skin was so dark that it was shiny. His scalp was smooth without any hair. His expression was solemn and dignified. "Hey little boy, I heard that your fighting skills are pretty good?" Olsen suddenly opened his mouth, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. His smile was not forced at all. Before Lu Qing could answer, another coach passed by. Olsen instantly shut his mouth and put on a solemn and sorrowful expression. "That's the legendary face-changing special skill. Looks like I'm not on good terms with Joseph." Lu Qing shook his head in amusement as he watched Olsen brush past him. He picked up his phone and shared the news with Ko. Immediately after, he turned into the exclusive training ground and saw the red-eyed girl, Hathaway, and the other students. There was no doubt that Cole had not come. After the few of them greeted each other, a Caucasian student rushed over. He asked in shock and doubt, "What happened? Why is there a demonstration outside and blocking the main entrance?" "Jack, didn't you watch the news?" Hathaway blurted out in shock. "So, did I miss something?" Jack spread his hands blankly. "I was at a party last night and partied till midnight. I came here after waking up. Mr. Joseph, no, Johnny Joseph has been proven to be the butcher. He died because of Cole's revenge." Another male student explained quickly. Lu Qing almost didn't understand. Luckily, he could guess what the other person was trying to say. That was why he could barely make sense of it. Jack's mouth was wide open. After a while, he scratched his head and said, "Are you kidding me? How could Mr. Joseph be the butcher? Even if he was Cole, 10 Coles wouldn't be able to kill him." "That's because there's a new superhero, the Deliver Man, helping him," Hathaway answered with fear and respect. Who would have thought that the usually dignified and powerful martial artist Joseph was actually the devil hiding around us? Luckily, we didn't have much contact with him. Luckily, the Deliver Man upheld justice and exposed the butcher's mask. "Really?" Jack took out his phone and browsed the news. After a few minutes, he exclaimed and burst out with a series of words. Lu Qing was stunned. "Oh my God! Is this real? So cool." After expressing his emotions intensely, Jack pointed outside and said, "So, that's a protest against Joseph?" "No, they're calling for a boycott of the Jianghu sect. It's organized by the mission. They say that all things have spirit is the path of the devil and will make people degenerate like Joseph." Hathaway said worriedly. She was worried that the Musashi martial arts arena would be affected. "We're not the weird guys from the Kagri sect. Our focus is on fighting. The Jianghu sect is covered in dirty water. They can't even take care of themselves." "I'm relieved." Lu Qing smiled as he listened. "The conflict between the mission sect and the nature sect runs deep. Hee. Will the Jianghu sect suspect that the Deliver Man is the mission's doing? If that's the case, the Jianghu sect and the Musashi martial arts arena will have to cut ties with Joseph. At least on the surface, no one will investigate this matter." The few students chatted worriedly for a while. A female coach with short blonde hair came over and said in a deep voice, "Lin Luodong will cooperate with the investigation. I hope he's not involved in any of the butcher's past cases. I'll be in charge of your lessons for the next few days. You can call me Madam Annie." She's calling him the butcher directly? That's a quick cut. Lu Qing sighed to himself. He began practicing his fighting techniques with Annie. During sparring, he controlled his body with the ice mirror and restrained his instinctive moves. He purely used boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. This gave him a different kind of experience. He looked back at his instinctive reactions during combat and improved himself from the details. Although she had some concerns, Annie had already awakened her own spirit. Her corresponding spiritual cultivation wasn't weak, so she maintained a calm state throughout. She earnestly completed the awakening teaching and other content, allowing Lu Qing to gain some insights. When the lesson ended, Lu Qing took a shower and changed his clothes. He carried the bag and left the Musashi martial arts arena without looking back. He had lunch with Yenjika and chatted about the butcher's case in school. After Yenjika's lesson, he bought a bottle of water and walked leisurely to the Dragon Punch Dojo of China. It was a short distance away and only took him 3 to 5 minutes. After leaving the Musashi martial arts arena, Jack invited Ossel and the other students he was close to his rented apartment for a meal. He specially ordered pizza, chicken wings, cola, and other food. When they gathered together, the topic of conversation was always about the butcher and the deliverman. The more they talked, the more excited they got. They made many guesses and finished criticizing each other. At this moment, the doorbell rang and the sound echoed throughout the living room. "Who is it?" Ossel asked instinctively. Jack stood up and walked to the door. He didn't care and smiled. "The takeout is here." Just as he said the word takeout, it was as though a magical spell had been cast on him. He froze on the spot and the discussions in the room were instantly silenced. "Don't tell me it's really the deliverman?" Jack swallowed his saliva and forced a smile. As he spoke, he carefully opened the door and made many confirmations. After a long mental journey, he finally got the pizza, chicken wings, and other food. "Just an ordinary delivery guy," Jack turned around and shrugged. Everyone was relieved at first, then disappointed. Similar scenes were happening in many places in Connecticut. Especially the children, they were filled with fantasies. After Lu Qing arrived at the Dragon Punch Dojo of China, he waited at the front desk and saw the skinny young man, Li Zuanping. "Is Dojo Master Zhu here?" he asked excitedly. Li Zuanping was all smiles. "He's here. He's doing a demonstration. If you were an hour later he would have left." That's good, that's good." Lu Qing nodded with a smile. He followed Li Zuanping into the training grounds and saw layers and layers of people in front of him. There were white, black, yellow, and brown people. "Watch carefully. If you sign up, there will be many more opportunities like this." Li Zuanping extended his hand from behind and tried to pat Lu Qing on the shoulder. However, Lu Qing happened to take a step diagonally, causing his hand to miss. At this moment, Lu Qing pulled his fascia and shook his muscles. Anyone who came into contact with him felt as though they had touched a loach. They slid half a step away without realizing it, allowing him to easily squeeze to the front. In the middle of the training grounds, a Chinese man in his 50s was slowly practicing the routine. His punches and kicks were natural and seemed to have some foundation. Of course, this foundation was only relative. Lu Qing was stunned. He couldn't believe that this was the legendary dojo master Zhu. Very average. Zhu Hong's hair had turned a little white, showing the vicissitudes of life. He was quite good-looking and had the temperament of a grandmaster. After practicing for a while, he settled his feet and got into a stance. 6 students came out to push him. Before Lu Qing could react, 4 muscular men had already entered the training grounds. There were white and black people. Then 2 excited students joined the team. They lined up in a row as though they were participating in a tug-of-war competition. The latter pushed the former and in the end they pushed Zhu Hong's palms. Yaya. The 6 men used all their strength but still couldn't push the skinny dojo master. This attracted the excited cheers of the other students. Lu Qing, on the other hand, was at a loss with his mouth half open. From the changes in his waist, abdomen, and legs, only the 2 at the end had exerted their strength. Not only did the other 4 not help, but they even slowed him down and offset his strength. Are they F***king liars? The corner of Lu Qing's mouth twitched. Chapter 507. After watching for a while, Lu Qing was both annoyed and amused. He wasn't in the mood to waste any more time. If one were to say that Gym Master Zhu was a complete liar, that wouldn't be the case. He obviously had a decent foundation in martial arts. Back in the day he was probably only a piece of paper away from the Danchi realm. However, due to his advancing age he no longer had any hope of making a breakthrough. Although the dragon fist he created couldn't be said to be stunning, it was still a combination of techniques from several countries. It was simple and powerful and was suitable for beginners. Given his situation, it wouldn't be difficult for him to set up a martial arts dojo in Chinatown near Connecticut University to earn some retirement money. However, if he wanted to make a name for himself, set up a signboard, set up a chain, and earn a huge sum of money, that would be beyond his reach. He could only rely on trickery to make up for his lack of martial arts. He could only rely on exaggerated performances to win over those who shared the same roots or the local masses, who yearned for the mysterious martial arts of China. From a practical point of view, Dojo Master Zhu was a great success, gaining both fame and fortune. On one hand, it was because he was very rational and clear-headed. He never had any conflicts with the local tyrants like the Jiruga sect, nor did he try to snatch their resources. He only took in those who were eliminated. On the other hand, normal challengers couldn't do anything to him. Moreover, there were also strong and sturdy disciples who had received the true teachings to take care of him. On the other hand, whether one could master martial arts or not depended on one's master. Even if a student failed, there would be plenty of reasons to explain it. No one would find fault because of this. Just like the Musashi martial arts gym, there were also a large number of failures. Gently shaking his head, Lu Qing seized the opportunity when the performing student's center of gravity changed when the crowd's cheers reached its climax. He drew in his qi and blood and channeled it into his left leg, causing it to swell and thicken. Lu Qing stomped on the ground and flipped forward. Suddenly the arena shook and trembled. The tall white man standing in front of Zhu Hong lost his balance and fell, leaning towards Dojo Master Zhu like Mount Tai. Zhu Hong's expression changed. He pushed his feet inward, twisted his knees, swung his hips, and braced his arms to withstand the fall. However, the students behind him were like falling dominoes, stacking on top of each other. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. His center of gravity wobbled and his body leaned backwards. He staggered a few steps back and sat on the ground. Thump, thump. The 6 students all fell to the ground in a heap, staring at Zhu Hong with their eyes wide open. The surrounding cheers came to an abrupt end. Everyone looked at each other with a blank expression on their faces. What was going on? This is probably what they call a performance accident. Lu Qing chuckled mischievously. While the crowd was panicking, confused, and focused on the interior of the venue, he picked up his phone, took a picture, and retreated. He squeezed out of the human wall, straightened his clothes, and slowly walked away. After a few seconds, everyone came back to their senses. The 2 Caucasian men in the crowd looked at each other in confusion. George, let's go back to class. The brown-haired young man with a few freckles on his face glanced at Zhu Hong, who hurriedly stood up and said disappointedly. The shaking of the field and the fall of the students were very close together. In hindsight, it was easy to confuse the cause and effect and think that the latter was the cause of the former. The blond youth with thick arms and a clear devil tattoo sighed and answered, "That's right. Sai, even in Cathay there aren't many people as powerful as Peng Helu. Not to mention those who were willing to come to a foreign land." After leaving the Dragon Punch dojo, Lu Qing strolled around the nearby streets aimlessly. He shared the incident with Yanjika along with the picture. Poor Dojo Master Zhu. He must be drawing circles and asking who I offended. He will most likely suspect that it's an old enemy or a competitor from the dojo. He definitely won't think that it's some guy who has nothing better to do, said Yanjika. It's hard to say if he'll realize that someone is messing with him. Maybe he'll think that it's a performance accident. Lu Qing put quotation marks around the word, performance. I'm thinking. If that so-and-so knew that someone's true motive was to prevent trouble before it happened, and that it wasn't too far away, what kind of expression would he have? At that moment, the conversation between Lu Qing and Joseph appeared in Yanjika's mind. This time, Lu Qing didn't say that he had nothing better to do. Instead, he answered frankly, "For my wife's safety, I have to get rid of the hidden danger in advance." What kind of reaction would Joseph have then? If it were me, I'd definitely ask, "Who's your wife?" and get a weird answer of, "You don't know her." After a series of weird conversations like, "Do I have anything to do with her?" and "I don't think so," he'd feel extreme absurdity and endless anger. It should be the expression of someone who died with their eyes wide open. "Sinister smile expression," replied Lu Qing. Yanjika forced herself to turn her attention back to the classroom. "Rest in peace, Mr. Joseph. It's my fault for coming to Connecticut to study." After this conversation, Lu Qing thought of his Connecticut criminal cleanup plan again. Hence, he leisurely started to filter out possible targets. Nightmare was stronger than Joseph. He hadn't locked onto a suspect of any value. He couldn't even find out who he was, let alone pay him a visit. Furthermore, his crime area was only in the slums, so he could effectively avoid him. The others were either people that Aunt Du could handle, or they wouldn't involve Ku at all. There were only 2 that could pose a threat. One was Mizuski of Polish descent. His skills were only passable. He was the boss of a mafia in Connecticut. He was involved in arms smuggling and large-scale drug trafficking. He worshipped spirit cultivation, and liked to use drugs to control girls, lure the innocent, and hold wild parties. In some situations, strength couldn't prevent everything. Mizuski had been caught a few times, but he had taken precautions in advance. He had his capable subordinates take the blame and go to jail. He was still at large. One of them was called Pavel. He was a member of the church and a grandmaster of martial arts. Due to the fact that he had violated young children and young girls, his current whereabouts were unknown. There were rumors that he was hiding in the famous Holy Top Church in Connecticut. However, in the absence of evidence, no one dared to search for him, even superheroes. Thinking of this, Lu Qing turned on his phone and sent an email to an inconspicuous mailbox. He asked Smith to provide more information for his reference. If there was a good opportunity and there weren't any consequences, he could try. If not, he wouldn't think about it for now. The butcher incident was at the cusp of a storm. It was better to avoid it for a while. Smith opened the door and got out of the car. He stretched his limbs and walked to the cafe. Just then he received a notification. He took out his phone and logged into an email that didn't belong to him. He saw Lu Cheng's email. After browsing through it, he covered his face with his hands. Is there an end to this? However, if this happened a few more times, everyone's attention would be diverted from the butcher case to the follow-up. That would completely bury the possibility of me being related to the deliverman. But I can't do too much or I'll be exposed sooner or later. P.S. I'm stuck at the end of this chapter. I didn't finish it for a long time. Seeing that there wasn't enough time, I wrote down the parts one thought of. That's why the word count is lower. I can't postpone it to tonight. Chapter 508. In China's Dragon Punch dojo, a gloomy Zhu Hong and a few of his disciples were checking the surveillance cameras, looking for clues. After confirming that there wasn't an earthquake, they were wary of any possible mistakes. Master, this guy is very suspicious. He left after taking a picture. Shouldn't he be enjoying the show? Said a disciple who shared the same roots as Zhu Hong, pointing at Lu Cheng's figure on the screen. Another disciple nodded in agreement. Also, he knows how to avoid the cameras and didn't show his face. We can't see what he looks like. However, we can ask the people in this dojo. Someone must have seen him before. After a moment of silence, Zhu Hong suddenly reached out and turned off the screen. He said in a hoarse voice, "He's an expert. An expert who can cause an earthquake with a stomp of his feet. An expert he couldn't face directly." He turned to look at his disciples and sighed. "We have to admit what we did. There's no need to make a big deal out of it. It won't be good for anyone. Anyway, it's only affecting this dojo for now. Be careful in other aspects. Don't make any more mistakes." "Yes, master," the disciples answered listlessly. They understood that this matter had to be dealt with quietly. They just couldn't take it lying down and wanted to find out who was the culprit. Now that they had calmed down, those thoughts of overestimating themselves also faded away. After Lu Cheng enjoyed his afternoon tea, he opened his mailbox and saw Smith's reply. He said that Mizuki's fighting standard, even with the addition of his spirit cultivation, was only at the formidable level. He wasn't even at the outstanding level. However, because of this, he was very careful about his own safety and was very careful when he went out. He wasn't like Joseph, who was strong and fearless. He was careless and careless, which made it easy for him to be ambushed. Mizuki belonged to the type that the entire Connecticut city knew that he was a mafia boss and the leader of villains, but there was no way to put him in jail. He knew this very well, so he was on guard everywhere and was very careful in everything he did. He did not want to be punished by a certain superhero one day. Most of the superheroes in the United States had their own ideas. They mainly focused on stopping crime and capturing criminals. They would not seriously violate the law and directly kill their targets. However, there were always exceptions in the world. There were also many superheroes who did not believe in the current system. For example, the danger level judge. His slogan was justice. For this reason, Mizuki not only cultivated a group of capable subordinates, but also hired professional security company personnel with high salaries. He also won over 2 outstanding spirit cultivators. Supplemented by other investments, his defense could be said to be impregnable. Over the years, it wasn't that there hadn't been superheroes who had ideas about him, but they had all returned in defeat. Looks like the formidable level here is the level of those who have just entered the Dan stage. Lu Cheng made a judgment based on Smith's description and recalled the information. According to Smith, with his strength, if he was willing to pay the price and ignore everything, there was still hope for him to kill Mizuki under heavy protection. However, if he did that, there would be no way to clean up the mess. He would leave behind many loose ends which would be very troublesome. Therefore, he advised him to wait patiently and not be impatient. Once there was an opportunity, he should be notified immediately. Lu Cheng was always an obedient person. He shook his head and threw the matter of Mizuki to the back of his mind. He started reading about Bishop Pavel. Smith was sure that Pavel was hiding in the Holy Top Church. However, that was the center of Catholicism in Connecticut. With Archbishop Kontsev in charge, it was impossible to sneak in. Kontsev, a formidable mighty one, was equivalent to a physical invulnerability expert. Connecticut was one of the few big cities in the United States. It was the financial center, so there was no shortage of physical invulnerability experts. Other than Kantsev, there was also Grand Elder Stephen of the Jiruga sect, Grand Teacher Sisko of Kagri, a spirit cultivator society that had split off from the Jiruga sect. There were also 3 participants in the top professional competitions. There was also a formidable one in the government security system. However, the information was confidential and rarely circulated. Due to various reasons, Smith felt that the time wasn't ripe to challenge Pavel. He believed that Pavel wouldn't be able to bear the loneliness and would leave the holy top church sooner or later. Then he would be monitored. A person who had been distorting his desires for years could restrain himself for a short period of time, but not for long. All right. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He reformatted the letters in his mailbox and exited the app. He stopped thinking about Mizuski and Pavel and started searching for terms like spirit cultivator and psychic in high spirits. Yenjika only had one class in the afternoon, followed by a group discussion. Lu Qing didn't have to wait long before he received the news of the rendezvous. He hurried over and returned home with the girl. Just as they got out of the car and were about to enter the house, they heard a knocking sound coming from their neighbor's house. Looking over, they saw a middle-aged man with a light yellow beard mowing the lawn with a push weeder. Seeing the couple looking over, he waved and greeted them with a warm smile. Looking back at the messy and long lawn, Yenjika blushed and said, "I forgot to hire someone to mow the lawn for the past 2 weeks." Seeing that it was still early, Lu Qing got an idea and said eagerly, "Why don't I do it?" This was the responsibility of the main labor force in the family. "Sure, I remember there are weeders in the garage." Yenjika was also excited. It felt like a child playing house. Hitting it off, the two entered the garage and found a stack of machines. Then they took out their phones at the same time, lowered their heads and started typing away. After a few seconds, Yenjika stole a glance at Lu Qing and asked curiously, "Qing, what are you looking at?" "I'm searching for tips on weeding in America, guide to lawn repair." Lu Qing showed the screen. "What a coincidence, me too." Yenjika's lips curved into a professional smile. After that, the two burst out laughing. They felt that they were indeed new teenagers who grew up in the age of the internet. Nowadays, it's a habit to ask the internet before doing anything. After some discussion, Lu Qing moved the weeder out of the garage. As he was preparing, he saw Yenjika hiding in the shadows with empty hands. "What are you going to do?" Lu Qing chuckled. Yenjika waved her fist solemnly and said, "I'm going to cheer you on." "You might as well cheer 666. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He retracted his gaze and began to push the weeder to clean the plants that were growing recklessly. At first he was still a little unfamiliar with it, but after a while he could hear the force of the weeder. Gradually, it became easier and more experienced to use it. He mowed the lawn neatly. During this process, he exchanged glances with the uncle next door and nodded at him from time to time. They really felt like neighbors. Yenjika, who was in the shade, watched him work with her dimples. Her eyes were gentle. Before 4:30, Lu Qing finished the lawn. Yenjika, who had shouted "good luck" to show that she wasn't just a spectator, came over and helped with the follow-up. After busying himself for a while, Lu Qing glanced at his little fairy who had a strand of grass stuck to her face at some point in time. "Why don't we cook tonight? I've already studied the recipe seriously." As he spoke, he reached out and pinched the weed, returning her beautiful face to her fair and clean face. "But I haven't seen the recipe yet." Yenjika blinked. She wanted to try but was also a little nervous. "What are you afraid of? I'll teach you." Lu Qing waved his hand generously and continued, "Besides, you're so smart. It'll be the same if you read it live." "That makes sense." Yenjika was full of confidence in her own intelligence. After informing Aunt Du, the girl took out an apron and put it on Lu Qing before putting it on herself. "What should we do first?" she asked with sparkling eyes. "Stir-fried beef." Lu Qing flipped to the corresponding page of the recipe and placed it on the counter. "Okay." Yenjika opened the fridge and picked up a piece of beef. After looking at it for a while, she said, "This is meat. Empress Dowager said it's most suitable for roasting and frying." "The recipe says tenderloin." Lu Qing tilted his head and glanced at it. After a while, the girl found the tenderloin and watched a certain superpower user defrosting the ice with his hands. Lifting the kitchen utensils, Lu Qing controlled his body. The knife moved quickly, leaving after images. After a while, the tenderloin was reduced to strips of meat. "My knife skills aren't bad, right?" Lu Qing boasted proudly. "Although I've never practiced knife skills, my senior sister is known as the Black and White Divine Knife. Awesome. Yenjika praised. She took out her favorite kitchen weighing tool and meticulously calculated how many grams of sweet potato starch, how much water, and how much oil were needed according to the recipe. She concentrated on mixing them with the shredded beef to make it more tender and smooth. Lu Qing started cutting onions at the side. Frost covered the onions and buried the feeling that rushed into his eyes. As he cut, he turned his head and looked at Yenjika, who seemed to be doing some important experiment. Looking at her plain white apron, he suddenly felt that Yenjika was also cute like this. Retracting his gaze, Lu Qing saw the same apron he was wearing. He suddenly had a strange feeling and couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Yenjika turned her head with a confused look. An hour or two ago, I was thinking about how to get rid of powerful criminals like Mizuki and Pavel. But now I'm busy cleaning the lawn, cutting vegetables and cooking. Lu Qing described his feelings as he straightened the apron on him. While he was researching the lawn mower, he had already talked to his fairy about Mizuki and Pavel. Yenjika pondered for a few seconds before nodding solemnly. This is probably called being able to make a living in the hall and enter the kitchen. As she finished speaking, a light smile appeared on her face. In the evening, at a small gathering, Huang Shiwen, whose face was still a little pale, sat on the sofa in the corner with a glass of champagne in her hand. Hey, are you in a bad mood? A young man with dyed white hair walked over and asked with a smile. He was of mixed blood and had a pair of deep dark eyes that were extremely charming. Can you tell? Huang Shiwen didn't know this man and replied politely. The white-haired young man laughed softly and said, "You are jealous of someone and afraid of someone. Am I right?" How did you know? Huang Shiwen blurted out in surprise, full of shock. Because I'm communicating directly with your heart. The white-haired young man raised his glass and took a sip. He said enigmatically, "Do you need my help to deal with them?" No need. Huang Shiwen shook her head in denial, shocked and scared. Yenjika probably didn't say anything bad about me, and Lu Qing didn't have any intention of dealing with me. There's no need to create more trouble? Okay. The white-haired young man didn't say anything else and left with a smile. Laura, what were you guys talking about just now? The host of the party, Jennifer, came over. Nothing. Huang Shiwen didn't want to talk about it anymore. Jennifer smiled and said, "He's a powerful spirit cultivator. You can ask him for help if you're in trouble." Not at the moment. Huang Shiwen denied again. Jennifer nodded and said, "All right. Then let's enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Let go of the restraints of life, let go of the outer layer of flesh, and enjoy the party to our heart's content." When it was close to the weekend, Lu Qing suddenly received an email from Smith. Mizuki will be out for a rave party. There might be a chance. Chapter 509. At the entrance of a villa with a fountain and statues in front of it, Mizuki said excitedly to the spirit cultivation instructor beside him, "House, I feel great this time. I'm about to come into contact with the world of pure spirit." He was less than 40 years old, tall, with deep eye sockets and a straight nose. His eyes were light green and the contours of his face were soft. He was a good-looking man and he was born with a childlike temperament. He didn't look like a gang leader who committed murder, arson, smuggling, drug trafficking and forced women into prostitution. The spirit cultivation instructor was a mixed-blood youth in his 20s. His hair was dyed white and his eyes were light brown. They were dark and deep, as if they were connected to another mysterious and strange world. Even when standing next to Mizuki, who was much older than him, he did not look young and inexperienced. Instead, he looked more mysterious. Very good. Try to maintain this feeling. Repeat the meditation tonight. I believe we can become the same kind of people, House replied with a smile. His body exuded a sense of relaxation, relief, and peace. The other spirit cultivator was in his 40s. His eyes were filled with madness, as if he was still reminiscing about the carnival just now and the feeling of being refreshed after breaking free from restraints. He and House stood on either side of Mizuki. Surrounded by professional bodyguards and gang gunmen, they boarded a bulletproof car. In a room on the first floor of the villa, Jennifer, whose cheeks were still flushed, swirled her wine glass. Her eyes were bright as she looked at Huang Shiwen, who was completely relaxed. How do you feel? I feel light, as if my body is weightless. My depression and pain have been vented by yelling and screaming. I'm very happy, Huang Shiwen replied with a slightly dazed look in her eyes. Although her body was tired, her spirit was satisfied. However, it was her first time attending a party like this. Soon she was worried. Senior Jennifer, will this be addictive? You don't have to worry. This is the secret medicine of a certain spiritual cultivation society. It does contain traces of marijuana, but as you know, you can also search for it. It's even less addictive than cigarettes. Look at me, do I show any signs of addiction? Jennifer explained in a gentle voice, guiding him patiently. Yes, Senior, you look very healthy and energetic, Huang Shiwen said with half certainty and half envy. His senior sister easily dealt with the classes and the party, unlike him who was full of pressure. Jennifer smiled and said, Laura, do you know that there was a party on the second floor just now? I know. Huang Shiwen had been curious about this for a long time, but without an invitation she couldn't pass through the burly man at the stairs. It's a secret party held by the Spirit Cultivators Society. It helps you release your stress and break free from the shackles of the external world and your body. You can truly see your unique self and see your own gem-like soul. Not only will it help you relax and achieve a wonderful peace, it will also allow you to experience extreme happiness. From there, you can break out of your prison and gain the opportunity to communicate with the pure spiritual world, Jennifer described in a dreamy tone. Seeing that Huang Shiwen was still holding back, she changed her words. This is the most popular party in the upper class. There are senators, lawyers, professors, and CEOs of various companies. The spirit cultivator you met earlier is their mentor. He's very powerful, much more powerful than a superpower user. Huang Shiwen's heart skipped a beat when she heard the words, upper-class society, but she still had some doubts about it, so she didn't dare to ask more. At the entrance of the villa, after Mizuki and the two spirit cultivators boarded the bulletproof sedan, the professional bodyguards didn't immediately leave to board the black car behind. Instead, they stood guard by the four doors. As the bulletproof sedan started moving slowly, they held onto the door and ran in small steps, maintaining their previous positions. Only when the bulletproof sedan started moving did they retract their arms, turn around, and enter the second car that was moving forward but had its door open. The whole process was very professional. At this moment, a figure jumped out from the shadows outside the villa. He wore a baseball cap that was pressed very low on his head, and a pair of black-rimmed glasses rested on the bridge of his nose, covering half of his face. The exposed part of his face was sparkling and the color was chaotic. His muscles were tight and he was unusually thin. In the blink of an eye, Lu Qing had reached the side of the bulletproof car as if he had shrunk the distance between them. He gathered his qi and blood and exploded them, expanding his right arm. He opened his palm and pressed it hard on the trunk of the car amid the flames. Screech, screech, screech. An ear-piercing screech of friction sounded instantly. The rear wheels of the bulletproof sedan were pressed to the ground. They spun wildly at first, then slowed down rapidly. Golden sparks flew everywhere. Both of Lu Cheng's legs were pressed inward, and his muscles were exaggerated. His entire body strength was twisted into one. Cracks appeared all around him and spread outwards. He pressed the button to stop the car that had already started moving. At this sudden change, the car behind instinctively braked, shaking the bodyguards and preventing them from reaching out their large-caliber pistols from the window. House, who was in the car in front, had already reacted. Dark flames flashed in his eyes, and a distorted shadow appeared in front of him. At this moment, Lu Qing didn't make any unnecessary movements. He shook his left arm and stretched it out. His 5 fingers expanded, and his small muscles and veins bulged. He grabbed the door of the car's fuel tank with dark red flames in between. With the sound of metal breaking, the small door was forcefully pulled open. Lu Qing took advantage of the momentum and stepped back, avoiding the shadow that came through the door and the bodyguard's bullets. They steadied themselves, extended their guns from the window, and completed a round of rapid fire. Lu Qing retreated again and again. During this process, he suddenly swung his right arm forward and shot out a highly condensed and heavy fireball. It accurately ignited the shadow and drilled into the fuel tank. No! Witnessing this scene, Mizuki and the leader of the bodyguards let out earth-shattering screams. Boom! A huge explosion immediately sounded, swallowing all other sounds. A terrifying fireball rose from the inside of the bulletproof car and rolled out, tearing apart the steel plates, shattering the glass and burning fiercely red. It was magnificent to the extreme but also terrifying to the extreme. The bodyguards in the car behind were momentarily stunned. Resisting the fear of a second explosion, they quickly got out of the car and split into 2 groups. One group was to chase and shoot in Lu Cheng's direction, while the other group was to try and rescue him. At this moment, the flames that completely covered the car in front suddenly split apart. A chilly wind blew in all directions and dyed the car green. In the car that was left with only the skeleton, Spirit Cultivator House's eyes glowed with darkness. His clothes were tattered and his face was pale. He kicked open the broken car door and walked out. Shadows wrapped around his left arm, and his right hand pulled Mizuki. This mafia tycoon was bleeding from the corner of his mouth, and his body was covered in terrifying burn marks. Although his injuries weren't fatal, they were quite serious and he almost fainted on the spot. As for the other Spirit Cultivator and his right-hand man, even though they were stronger, they were also in a bad state and had almost lost their ability to fight. Lu Qing had retreated to the back of the flower bed. As the bodyguards got out of the car and House extinguished the fire, he reached into his pocket with his left hand, took out a coin and flicked it out. Clang. The coin was distorted, creating a streak of reddish-gold sparks that shot towards Mizuki like lightning. House cursed under his breath and threw Mizuki at his feet. He extended his palms forward, creating more shadows to meet the bomb. Bam! The coin exploded into pieces. After piercing through the layers of shadows, its power finally faded. The bodyguards covered Lu Cheng's position with fire, forcing him to retreat again and leave the scene. At this moment, a bullet was fired from a silencer behind the crowd. It silently entered Mizuki's head, causing his eyes to widen abruptly. His pupils protruded and he lost control of his bladder. He died with a grievance. On the huge stone sculpture in the fountain, the shadow that had been lurking for a long time threw out a few thin threads that stuck to the corner of the villa. With a whoosh, it disappeared. Seeing this, Lu Qing quickly retreated. He didn't want to stay any longer. After a few ups and downs, he had left the crowd far behind. After sprinting for a while, he suddenly stopped. The ice mirror of mind reflected a shadow that was following him. It was like a face and it vaguely resembled House's. For an inhuman with a mutated body, it was easy to use superpowers within a small area. However, beyond a certain distance, there was no way to control it. Spirit cultivators, on the other hand, didn't seem to be restricted. Lu Qing didn't bat an eyelid. In his mind, he sketched out the ancient army character, turned its murderous aura into a spike, and shot it at the shadow. This was something he could only do after his breakthrough in the ice mirror. It was also a simplified version of the 9 words formula, and similarly, it was a reduction in power in exchange for faster usage. With a poof, the spike hit the shadow and obliterated it like a nemesis. Ah! At the entrance of the villa, House suddenly let out a scream. Clutching his head, he fell to the ground in pain. His body twitched and it was a terrifying sight. The bodyguards looked at each other for a few seconds. Just as they were about to start rescuing him, the flames in the car flared up again, causing a second explosion. Boom! The loud explosion scared the men and women in the villa. Some called the police while others tried to peek outside. Don't be afraid. With Mr. House around, it won't be a problem. Jennifer comforted Huang Shiwen. There's also Mr. Zaire. He's a powerful figure with a reputation. Zaire was Mizuki's alias. Is Mr. House very powerful? Huang Shiwen asked in trepidation. Very powerful. He's a very, very powerful spirit cultivator, Jennifer confirmed. After waiting for a few minutes, the explosions and gunshots outside had stopped. They cautiously looked out the window and saw a luxury car reduced to a skeleton. Mizuki and House were moved to the side, motionless. The villa was completely silent, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Huang Shiwen shook her head, feeling that this would be a nightmare she would never be able to get rid of. 2 blocks away, Lu Qing met up with Smith. He changed out of his takeout clothes and sneakers and turned them into ashes. Hearing the cracking sounds from Lu Cheng's bones, seeing him grow bigger and taller, bulging his facial muscles and becoming more defined, Smith couldn't help but exclaim, "Oh, how magical!" "A little trick," Lu Cheng replied with a smile. After encountering gods in the void, his control over his body was enough to achieve bone shrinkage. Smith started the car and drove off into the distance. After a moment of silence, he said with trepidation, "I'm crazy. I've been a secret agent for 5 years, and I've never participated in any dangerous missions. Neither have I done anything that a superhero should do. This is the first time I've experienced it. A bullet was fired and a life was lost. Mizuki and the spirit cultivator beside him deserve to die, but under the circumstances where they haven't been convicted, I feel like I'm committing a crime." Lu Cheng glanced at Smith, the corner of his mouth twitching. Smith calmed down. "I didn't know you were so talkative." Understood. Calm down. Smith took a deep breath, regaining his professionalism as an agent. Lu Qing pondered for a few seconds before saying, "Do you think Mizuki doesn't deserve to die? If there was strong evidence to convict him, others would have done it long ago. If there wasn't, even if they caught him, he could still find someone to take the blame and leave the court easily." "I know." Smith tilted his head and looked at Lu Qing. "I just feel like I'm no longer Spider-Man. I need to find a concept that suits me." "Lu, why are you so calm? Don't you feel conflicted? Isn't that obvious? I'm not the one who killed him in the end." Lu Qing thought for a moment, then answered seriously, "Maybe it's because my legal awareness is weak." Smith was at a loss. He didn't say anything else. After taking a detour, he returned the gun to the subordinate of Mizuki's enemy. Finally, he sent Lu Qing to the north of Connecticut. After entering the house, Lu Qing looked at Yenjika, who was still in her pajamas, waiting in the living room. He smiled and said, "Done? So easy. Details?" Yenjika heaved a sigh of relief, her eyes shining brightly. Lu Qing was about to describe when he heard his stomach rumbling. He smiled sheepishly and said, "I'll make something to eat first. I'm starving after this." "I'll make it." Yenjika raised her arm eagerly. "What do you want to eat? Do you have noodles?" Lu Qing smiled casually. "There's flour. You can make your own noodles." Yenjika jogged into the kitchen and called out to Lu Qing. She pointed at the flour and said, "I've made it. You need it. Aren't you going to make it?" Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. Yenjika pursed her lips and said innocently, "You have more strength in your hands." "All right." Lu Qing smiled and put on his apron. When Huang Shiwen and the rest were questioned by the police, he brought a bowl of noodles into the dining room. He watched as Yenjika poured the leftovers that he had heated up earlier into the bowl as toppings. Then she started eating happily. Occasionally he would tell the girl about what had happened. What a wonderful night. Chapter 510. After finishing his noodles and soup, Lu Qing put down his bowl and chopsticks. He flipped a coin in his left hand and started complaining about Smith in a low voice. "That spider is really something. I just casually mentioned it at the start because I thought it would be too risky to go on my own. But he agreed right away and even tried to perfect the plan in high spirits. I thought he was indeed the head of the Secret Service. His mental fortitude was off the charts and he had seen all kinds of storms. Who knew he would become as listless as a little lamb and kept nagging me that this was against his ideals and that he didn't deserve to be Spider-Man anymore. Why didn't he reject it earlier?" Yenjika rested her chin on one hand and listened quietly. Her black, jewel-like eyes looked at Lu Qing from head to toe and then fell on his left hand, which was flipping the coins quickly. After a moment of silence, she said in an uncertain tone, "Qing, you're actually not very calm either, right?" "Huh?" Lu Qing was stunned and instinctively wanted to deny it. But when he glanced at the flipping coin, it was as if he saw his own heart in the same state. It looked calm and peaceful with only a slight ripple. But in fact, it was tense and surging in the depths. "Yeah, after visiting Joseph, I couldn't help but abuse the mineral water bottle. It turned cold and then hot, then cold and then hot again. I only managed to calm down when I saw Ku. As a law-abiding student for more than 10 or 20 years, he was not like what he had said to Smith just now, that he had a weak awareness of the law and was a natural outlaw. What he longed for was never a life of fear and fear. Although he had experienced killing the ninth pin of the dark sect and improved his adaptability at the edge of life and death, and tempered his state of mind, he was either involved or not involved. Plus, he had his sect to deal with the aftermath, so he didn't have to worry. It was fundamentally different from ambushing the butcher in a foreign country or eliminating Mizuki. In the end, I'm just a fledgling in this aspect. And I don't really like doing things like this." Lu Qing was stared at by the girl who seemed to be able to see through his soul. His thoughts were in turmoil and finally turned into a sigh. "Could come here. Let me give you a hug." "Okay." Yenjika left her seat and walked to Lu Qing. She allowed him to stand up and open his arms to hug her tightly. The familiar scent wafted into his nose and lingered in his mind. Her beautiful body was slender and warm. Their breaths seemed to resonate. Lu Qing's heart slowly calmed down. He watched as the feelings of anxiety, uneasiness, and tension slowly returned to the lake. There was no more undercurrent. During this process, Yenjika patted his back clumsily and awkwardly, just like how he gently stroked the girl's hair. After getting rid of the butcher and Mizuki, the other criminals in Connecticut will either not involve you or fall within the range that Aunt Du can handle. There's only Pavel left. He's hiding in the Holy Top Church and won't dare to sneak out for a few months. Moreover, his main targets are the underage children. Anyway, I don't think there's anything else for me to do. I can relax and enjoy life. Lu Cheng's voice was low. Yanjika's comforting actions gradually became more familiar and smooth. She buried her head in Lu Cheng's shoulder and answered in a low voice, "That's good, that's good." After hugging for a long time, the two of them separated. Lu Cheng picked up the bowl and chopsticks and smiled, his body and mind relaxed. "Hello, your dishwasher is online. You make it sound like I'm eating?" Yanjika looked at Lu Cheng in disdain. She chuckled and teased, when someone came back he was so relaxed. He acted as though he had just gone out to buy groceries and that making noodles when he was hungry was more important than superhero matters. In the end it was all an act. At this point she turned and smiled. She muttered to herself in a low voice, "Then I'm relieved." After washing the dishes, the couple took separate showers and lay side by side on the bed. With their backs against the pillows, they covered themselves with a thin blanket and scrolled through their phones. "Hey, our overseas students group chat is saying that Senior Jennifer is involved in Mizuki's case." Yenjika's crossed legs swayed as she turned her body to the side. "There's news already?" Lu Cheng hadn't scrolled through the news yet. As for the forums and forums of foreigners and other places, he was still confused and didn't look into it. A classmate's uncle migrated to Connecticut a long time ago to do business. His cousin happened to be working at the police station, Yenjika explained. She moved the phone and herself closer to Lu Cheng to read the follow-up. According to the classmate's description, Jennifer, an active figure at Connecticut University, had been controlled by Mizuki since a long time ago to help him find girls of good quality. The usual method was to invite them to parties, and after they had played together a few times and got familiar with each other, he would lure them to take this secret drug, in order to seek higher levels of enjoyment. Then he would slowly increase the dosage until it became an addiction. Finally, he would introduce them to rave parties, where they would indulge their body and mind and fall into depravity. They would become a tool for spirit cultivators or a tool for Mizuki to rope in members of the upper class. When they got bored and didn't have the talent in this area, they would be thrown to the bottom of the class and controlled to make money. In the process, the girls who were seduced would, in turn, become like Jennifer, pulling in more unsuspecting girls, causing the number of victims to snowball. However, not everyone would succumb. It should be said that most of the girls participated a few times, but after realizing that something was wrong, they would rationally refuse and not come again. Of course, there were also poor victims who were forcibly drugged. How can this be? Yenjika was dumbfounded. She was so angry that her voice trembled a little. Unlike the girls Joseph killed, she didn't know and had no relationship with them. This time, many of the victims involved in this case were students from Connecticut University. Yenjika didn't discriminate against the atmosphere of parties in America. She just felt that it was a waste of time and could easily lead to scandals, so she wasn't willing to participate. Who knew that some parties were actually dangerous, like a venomous snake that looked colorful but was actually terrifying? Lu Cheng felt lucky and no longer had any doubts about his previous actions. What's the point of bullying girls? And it was easier to implicate Ku than he expected. It's good that Mizuki died. Those spirit cultivators are also detestable. He only regretted that he didn't have the chance to punish them. Yenjika complained for a while. She was actually a little traumatized by the parties. The police didn't reveal who was involved in the parties out of consideration for the victims. "Cheng, you did a great job this time." After venting, the girl looked up at her husband with bright eyes. Out of habit, Lu Cheng wanted to flirt and ask what the reward was. However, he was still in a state of calmness after the excitement. When he saw Ku's serious expression and bright eyes, he immediately felt that everything had paid off. "I like this reward." He chuckled softly. "Huh." Yenjika was stunned. She didn't know what her Cheng had pulled on again. "Since when did I reward him?" After calming down, the girl browsed the news again. Finally, she found a few reports in a row. The Deliverman reappears. The infamous Mizuki was executed. The Deliverman is not a hero of order. Crazy party, deadly party? Yenjika's English reading ability was much better than Lu Cheng's. She browsed quickly and translated. According to the investigation at the scene, the Deliverman had the help of powerful companions. This may be the reason why they could kill Mizuki while the other heroes couldn't. The surveillance equipment at the scene was damaged and couldn't record the key parts. However, we were able to extract the footage and directly see the Deliverman. He is less than 1.7 meters tall and dressed like a typical delivery boy. He wore a baseball cap and very large black-rimmed glasses. His skin color was indistinguishable. He was the type with thin cheeks. He was good at making explosions. His hands were covered in flames, so no fingerprints were left. This basically matches the description in Cole's brief statement. Basically matches? Yanjika laughed and turned to look at Lu Cheng. Her Ching was already 1.78 meters tall after his second puberty. He wasn't handsome, but he was a good young man with defined lines, full muscles, and a masculine face. If they are really the same, then I'll have a headache. Lu Cheng laughed. He deeply felt that the bone-shrinking skill was very useful. After chatting for a while, Yanjika translated the comments under the news. The American public was roughly divided into two camps. A group of people believed that the Deliverman was not a superhero but an evil person. If he could kill the infamous Mizuki today without any evidence, he could kill someone else tomorrow based on his own judgment. Perhaps he could kill someone else tomorrow based on his own judgment. This was a factor that caused social unrest. They wanted to catch the Deliverman as soon as possible. The other camp believed that the American system was corrupt and hopeless. The judiciary had become a toy for the rich and powerful and could no longer uphold justice. At this time, it required a brave knight to judge and punish the bad guys. They claimed that the Deliverman was their idol and a true knight. After translating the most popular comments, Yanjika chuckled and said, "I don't know about other things, but I'm sure those rebellious youths in America worship you. It doesn't feel right that everyone is wearing black-rimmed glasses to imitate me." Lu Cheng's imagination ran wild. The couple talked and laughed for a long time until their biological clocks came and they both fell asleep. In the middle of the night, Yanjika woke up slowly. She wanted to turn over but found that her right hand was tightly gripped and she couldn't break free. She propped her head up and looked beside her. Although Lu Cheng was sound asleep, his hand was firmly gripping hers and wouldn't let go. The gentleness and calmness in his eyes faded away and he became like a child. The next morning, the couple woke up on time and started practicing. Because of the experience of mastering the other characters, Yanjika finally got a feel for the fighting formula after a few days of practice. This made her very happy and she even ate 5 more mouthfuls of breakfast. After they parted ways outside the campus, Lu Cheng jogged to the Msasi martial arts gym. Along the way he saw many imitators wearing baseball caps and black-rimmed glasses. He could only twitch his mouth in response. In the following week, Lu Cheng was well behaved because Pavel never left the Holy Top Church. He even didn't find an opportunity to challenge the Grandmaster of Martial Arts of the Jianghu sect as planned to avoid the limelight. In the blink of an eye, it was almost the end of the month. It was time for Lu Cheng to return. In the lobby of Orion Airport, Smith heaved a long sigh of relief when he saw the reluctant couple through the surveillance camera. During this period of time, he had come to realize that he had deviated from the path of Spider-Man ever since he couldn't get a search warrant for Joseph. That was why he agreed to Lu's suggestion of working together to eliminate Mizuki. However, Lu was a dangerous person. If he stayed in Connecticut all the time, it was easy for him to cause trouble, which would exhaust him to deal with the aftermath. Phew, thank God he's finally leaving. Smith made a cross piously. Chapter 511. In front of the security checkpoint, Lu Cheng was carrying a 20-inch trolley box, which was filled with the loot he got from shopping with Yanjika. There were new clothes for him from head to toe and gifts for Lu Jisheng, Qifeng and the others. It's so good to have a wife. She's so thoughtful. Lu Cheng looked at Yanjika, who still looked tired. He tucked her hair behind her ear and said with a smile, "I'm going in. Go home quickly. Sleep early tonight. Get some sleep." Yanjika was touched at first, but as she listened, she became embarrassed and angry. She opened her eyes, shook her right arm and punched Lu Cheng in the abdomen. Her move was smooth but she didn't use any strength. "Who's to blame?" she whispered, gritting her teeth. She waved and turned around, pretending to be cool. She walked slowly to Du Yen, who was waiting for her at the elevator. Lu Cheng held his stomach and stood up straight. He looked at his little fairy's back with a smile and muttered to himself, "Should I post a question on the forum? My wife is getting less and less shy and more violent. What should I do?" Well, they'll definitely answer, "Show off your love, get lost," or, "I entered the wrong post, I'll get lost myself." While thinking, he watched Yanjika walk away. When she was about to enter the stairs, Yanjika finally couldn't hold back her emotions anymore. She turned around and looked at Lu Cheng, who was still standing there, not moving at all. Their eyes met. She couldn't help but curse under her breath, "Idiot," because they wouldn't be apart for too long this time, as they would come again next month, and because they already had experience, the two of them weren't as reluctant to part as before. After looking at each other for more than 10 seconds, they waved again, entered the elevator and went through the security check. They skillfully switched to online dating mode. Lu Cheng's flight was smooth. The flight took off on time, and there was no bad news in the weather forecast. Smith resisted the urge to wave his fist and celebrate. He rearranged the surveillance reports during this period, threw out a spider thread, and rushed into the director's office. It was as if he was running to freedom. Thank God, amen. In a spacious and clean hospital with few patients, a brown-haired middle-aged man with a stiff face and missing an arm looked through the window at the unconscious house in the intensive care unit. He said to the person beside him, "He's close to brain death." "I know," the black-robed man with green eyes answered calmly. It was hard to tell how old he was. His appearance was ordinary, but he had the temperament of a scholar. There was also an illusory sense of mystery that did not belong to the real world, making people admire him and willing to listen to his every word. "Lucas, I have a suggestion. Let me take him away. You should know that we have the artificial weapons project that will allow House to live in another way," the one-armed man said solemnly. Lucas, who looked like a mysterious scholar, was silent for a moment before he nodded indiscernibly. "I have no objections." The one-armed man heaved a sigh of relief and asked, "Haven't you found any useful clues about the Deliverman?" "No psychic is not omnipotent. In the absence of a direction, even a great teacher can't do anything," Lucas replied slowly, "but as long as he appears a few more times, we will definitely be able to catch him. Wherever he goes, there will be traces left behind. The only difference is how many traces there are. Once we accumulate enough traces, things will be simple." "May God bless you," the one-armed man said out of habit. But as soon as he finished speaking, he felt that it was inappropriate. God would not bless this group of evil spirit cultivators. It was more likely that he would send down holy light to purify them. Lucas had obviously thought of this as well. He smiled mockingly, took one last look at House in the ICU and turned to leave. "Lucas, there's one more thing. You have to complete the dissection as soon as possible and throw out a few people to calm the public opinion." The one-armed man raised his voice and reminded him. "We're doing it now." Lucas turned around and smiled. "Gore, when this is over, I'll invite you to my private island for a vacation." "My pleasure." The one-armed man imagined the scene on the island and felt a burning sensation in his lower abdomen. When Lu Cheng flew to Songqing, it was the eve of the 11th. The members of the martial arts club would have a 3-day holiday. He planned to go back to Xioshan on the 2nd of October to help his parents move and send gifts to each of them. After half a year of drying the new house, they could finally move in. As soon as he entered the dormitory, Lu Cheng saw Zhao Chang, Zhang Jingye, and Qiu Zhigao returning from self-study. "Hey, you're early." "Hey, you're back." Both parties greeted each other in surprise. At this time, Zhao Chang smiled a little embarrassedly. "Ching, let's have dinner together tonight." "It's my treat." "Your treat? What?" Lu Cheng sized up the head of the dormitory, Comrade Chang. He wore a pair of black-rimmed glasses and combed his hair neatly. Although he looked old, he had a sense of maturity. As expected of a scholar? "Cheng, you've been living a simple life. You don't even know the Han dynasty, let alone the Wei and Jin dynasties." Kai Zongming came over from the dormitory next door and dropped a line. After all, he was admitted to Songqing University with his own ability. "What's going on?" Lu Cheng was curious. Qiu Zhigao explained enviously, "Chang has a girlfriend. He has to treat." "Girlfriend? The one from Songqing Normal University?" Lu Cheng asked. "That was Zhao Chang's high school classmate." "Yes." Zhao Chang nodded happily and shyly. "Didn't you say that there was an elder who taught you to study more when you're young and not to waste time on love?" Lu Cheng teased him with amusement. "People still have to consider the course of history in this life." Zhao Chang sighed with satisfaction. "Speak human language." Lu Cheng interrupted his explanation. Zhao Chang scratched his head helplessly. "I just can't help it. I like her. What can I do?" "I think you're pretty good at taking action." Lu Cheng praised from the bottom of his heart. "It's okay. It's mainly because she likes me too." Zhao Chang beamed with joy. Classmate Little Ming said disdainfully, "They talk every day. You go to my school and I go to yours on weekends. They'll either be lovers or enemies." "Friendship between classmates? Were you kidding? Didn't I say before that Chang will be B? He made a gesture of holding his hand in the palm of his hand. Zhao Chang could only smile awkwardly. After a burst of laughter, Lu Cheng asked casually, "Where are we going for dinner tonight?" "Let's go to Songqing Normal University." They're on the old campus. There's a street full of delicious food next to them, Zhao Chang suggested. Songqing Normal University was originally called Songqing Normal University. Later, because of a dog called Chow Chow, people automatically changed it. The old campus of Songqing Normal University is a bit far. Kai Zongming said hesitantly. Hey Casanova, that's not like you. Lu Qing was stunned and joked. Why not? Kai Zongming glanced at his best friend. If it were you in the past, you would definitely say that Songqing Normal University is a good place. There are so many beautiful women. As a married man, although you won't fool around, you can feast your eyes and be happy. How could you say it's far away? Lu Qing mocked talker without holding back. Kai Zongming was stunned for a moment, then sighed deeply. Things are different now. Look, I have special training in the morning and homework in the afternoon and at night. I'm not like you who have the protection of the academy and school, so I'm not afraid of exams. The rest of my time is only enough to chat with my Fang Yuan. I have to make use of every opportunity to play games. How can I be in the mood to look at beautiful women? My current state is the standard of a dead heart, dumbfounded. I'm happy to hear you say that. Lu Qing patted little Ming's shoulder. Kai Zongming curled his lips and said, I was going to advise you not to live like a monk when your girlfriend isn't around. How good would it be to be a little more sunny? But now I understand that it's so King tiring. How can I be in the mood and energy? After a short rest, the five of them set off. On the way they talked about how they started. Zhao Chang was a natural success, and both of them had a good impression of each other at about the same time. Zhang Jingye was the one who chased after girls. During that time he was often invited by Wu Qian to go on a trip. As for the Casanova, time revealed a person's heart. After understanding his feelings, it didn't take much effort for him to be together with Fang Yuan. It seems that I'm the only one who really got her. Lu Qing sighed with emotion. As soon as he finished speaking, he remembered Yan Zhika who was far away in America. When they parted just now, he already missed her. 40 minutes later, they arrived at the north gate of Songqing Normal University and met Zhao Chang's old classmate and current girlfriend, Wang Shi. She was about 1.6 meters tall with fair skin. You know my roommate's Lu Qing. He has to wear glasses when he goes out now. Otherwise he'll block the traffic. Zhao Chang introduced his roommates to his girlfriend. Hello, there are 2 girls in our dorm who are your fans. Wang Shi greeted politely. I can only say thank you. Lu Qing replied with a smile. Kai Zongming, I've told you before, talker. The guy who only has one mouth left. Zhang Jingye, model worker, and old Qiu, the only single dog left in our small dormitory. You have to introduce them to him. Zhao Chang proudly said one by one. While chatting casually, they entered the food street near the north gate and found a famous barbecue restaurant. While waiting, Lu Qing talked about the local customs of America. Everyone listened with great interest. They were interested in the social phenomenon of superheroes. At this moment his phone suddenly rang. It was an unknown number. Who is it? Lu Qing suspected that it was a scam or a sales call, but he still chose to answer in case he missed something important. As soon as the call connected, a magnetic voice came from the other side. Lu Qing? Yes, you are? Lu Qing asked in confusion. The other side didn't hesitate and answered naturally, I'm Qin Chitao. Chapter 512. Lu Qing's first reaction when he heard the other party's name was Qin Chitao. What AF * King Liar. His mind was already filled with jokes such as, I'm Dragon King Qin Chitao. I'm severely injured and have lost all my martial arts. I'm stranded in a foreign land and don't dare to contact anyone I know for fear of being discovered by my enemies. I hope you can lend me $5,000 for travel expenses to help me return to the Longhu Club. When I'm back, I'll take you in as my disciple and teach you the unique skills of the fire sect, or give you half of my assets. As for knowing his name, damn it. Which high-class liar wouldn't buy big data? Resisting the urge to blurt out, I'm returning Chen Donglu, Lu Qing replied calmly, Senior, is there anything I can help you with? This voice sounded so King familiar. It sounded like the Dragon King when he was being interviewed. Even the tone was similar. The tone on the other end of the phone remained unchanged. If you're not returning to the Wuxia Club next year, come to the Longhu Club. Not scammed? No one should know that I'm not returning to the Wuxia Club. Could it be the real Dragon King? Lu Qing was excited. Without thinking, he gave an affirmative answer. Okay. The Dragon King personally invited me? The other end of the phone paused for a moment. The magnetic voice didn't mention what had just happened. Instead it said calmly, the core of Emperor Yen force is weight, not combustion, and definitely not explosion. You have understood this point very well. However, you have yet to reach the external realm of heaven and earth. Blindly pursuing weight is not in line with the actual condition of your body. It won't be long before you reach a bottleneck. You can try to do more at the inhuman stage and mix in the charm of combustion. Okay. Lu Qing listened with a dumbfounded face, replying from time to time. How did this turn into teaching over the phone? After a few minutes, the person who called himself Qin Chitao stopped and said slowly, "That's all." As soon as he finished speaking, the beeping sound was heard. Lu Qing held the phone and stood there in a daze for a long time, unable to come back to his senses. It really is the Dragon King. Who would be so free as to teach me Emperor Yen force? Haha, the Dragon King personally invited me. To personally invite me. As a qualified fan, Lu Qing was both excited and agitated. He couldn't wait to shout this through the loudspeaker. What's wrong, Qing? Who called? Zhao Chang asked in confusion because of his strange expression. It seemed to have come from some senior? Lu Qing was about to share with his roommates the fact that the Dragon King had personally invited him when he suddenly felt that it would be too showy and high profile. Hence, he smiled reservedly and said, "Nothing much. I was just discussing the professional competition with a senior." Oh, when the time comes, you should directly enter the top professional competition and fight with the Wuxia club, right? Qiu Zhigao asked curiously. Not necessarily. Lu Qing replied with a smile. At the same time he picked up his phone and sent a firecracker emoji to Yanjika. The Dragon King called me. Yanjika had just woken up and replied, rubbing my sleepy eyes expression, "Is it really Dragon King? Am I still asleep?" Of course. Based on his understanding of Emperor Yen force, I can guarantee it. Lu Qing said with a fist-glowing expression. He's inviting you to the Longhu Club? Yanjika was so smart that she had already guessed it. Yes. Hands on hips expression, Lu Qing replied. After sending this, he calmed down and replied, scratching head expression, I seem to have agreed directly. I haven't discussed with you and haven't asked my master. This should be the so-called evil disciple? The excited Lu Qing is so cute, Yanjika sent a rubbing head expression. You know my opinion. Of course I agreed. Lu Qing replied, snickering expression. Actually, I was quite afraid that I would encounter a difficult problem. If the Dragon King invited me on one hand and our grandpa asked me to go to the Shushan study as a guest elder, what should I do? What would you do? Rolling eyes expression, Yanjika replied. Of course I would follow my wife. Lu Qing replied without hesitation. Yanjika replied, covering mouth expression. Actually, the Shushan study is a righteous sect. It's one thing to look up to you, but if they really want to invite you to be a guest elder, they won't be able to lower themselves to do so. It would seem that the sect has no successor. Anyway, there's still my brother, Senior Qing Song and the rest. Yes. After sharing with his little fairy, Lu Qing barely calmed down his excitement. He chatted with Zhao Chang, Kai Zongming and the rest for a while. When he went to the washroom he called his master. Hey, you're finally willing to call me? Geezer sure said sarcastically. Lu Qing laughed dryly and went straight to the point. Master, the Dragon King just called me and asked me to go to the Longhu Club next year. What do you think if I don't go back to the Wuxia Club? He hid the fact that he had already agreed to it. Go. Of course you have to go. Your fire sect martial arts only have force and no moves. Don't you feel that it's very restrictive? When you go to the Longhu Club, make up for it. If there's a chance, learn all the unique skills of physical invulnerability and the forbidden sect. Geezer sure said with saliva flying everywhere. Unique skills of physical invulnerability. Forbidden sect martial arts. Lu Qing's mouth twitched. Master, do you have to be so straightforward? It sounds like you want to knock me out and send me there, my biological master. Geezer sure coughed and said, I'm doing this for your own good, you brat. There aren't many chances for you to learn the forbidden sect's martial arts. It's settled then. With Dragon King's pride, he's already called you personally. What else do you want? Okay. Lu Qing was secretly relieved. Well, there might also be a shameless old guy who's good at pestering you in the next few days. He'll invite you under my name. You can just reject him directly. Don't talk nonsense with him. Geezer sure thought of another matter. 2 days ago he accidentally let slip that his disciple would most likely not return to the Wuxia Club. Who's that? Lu Qing was stunned. Geezer sure sighed. I was young and immature. I made friends with that old guy by mistake. It's still a headache to this day. Anyway, don't give him a chance to take advantage of you. After that, he hung up the phone and walked around his daughter's house looking for good wine. Lu Qing was left in a daze at the bathroom door. Who could it be? Which force? These two doubts didn't last long. On the night of October 1st, the official start of the holiday, Lu Qing received a call from the old guy. The other party smiled very warmly. Lu. Yes, who is this? Lu Qing said politely. I'm a good friend of your master's for many years. My surname is Wu. I'm currently working in the Haiyuan Club. Jianghu has mentioned me to you, right? The voice on the other side didn't sound too old. There was a hint of leisure in the mellow voice. A little. Senior Wu Molian, right? Lu Qing roughly knew who it was when he heard the words Haiyuan Club and surname Wu. Which first-pin mighty ones participating in professional competitions weren't famous? Yes, it's me, the empty-nest old man, Wu Molian laughed. Lu, are you interested in joining our Haiyuan Club? Although we haven't entered the top circle yet, we'll be there soon. I can still fight for another 5 years. The witch has already grown up. The cheetah has almost agreed to join us. Li Xiaoyuan will come next year or the year after. If you're willing to join us, you'll definitely be a core member that will focus on nurturing. You can learn whatever you want from the club's martial arts. We'll give you a basic salary based on physical and vulnerability standards. If you want a house and a car, just say the word. Remembering his master's teachings, Lu Qing interrupted him. Senior Wu, I've already promised the Longhu Club. If I don't return to the Wuyue Club, I'll join them. The Longhu Club? That's fast. Wu Molian muttered. Lu, you have to consider this carefully. You're just one of the reserves in the Longhu Club. But at Haiyuan you'll be the only one. To put it bluntly, they're big and have strict rules. Even if you're a heavenly son of the era, you'll still have to lower your head. What are their conditions? I don't know yet. Lu Qing answered honestly. He had completely forgotten about this when he made the promise. As for the fact that he hadn't signed the contract, he had to keep his word in the martial arts world. You don't know? Lu, this means that they don't value you. What you need the most at your current stage is to be valued. Wu Molian perked up. Lu Qing replied immediately. The Dragon King called me. That's enough, right? The Dragon King? Wu Molian fell silent. Yes. Lu Qing confirmed. Phew, Senior Wu won't pester me anymore, right? The Dragon King's moves are indeed fast, accurate, and ruthless. Wu Molian sighed and smiled again. Lu, you really have to consider this carefully. The Dragon King is too arrogant and not easy to get along with. He rambled on for a full half an hour before Lu Qing finally got rid of him. He felt both physically and mentally exhausted. What a persevering old man. Luckily, my willpower is strong and I'm not swayed. On the 2nd of October, Lu Qing returned to Xioshan and participated in the moving. He carried a cabinet in one hand and walked into the freight elevator under the dumbfounded gazes of the onlookers. Seriously, it's not like we don't have money. Why can't we just hire a moving company? Why must we find a car and move by ourselves? Lu Qing cursed Qi Feng in his heart as he moved the cabinet into his new home. At this moment his phone rang. The screen lit up and the words hipster appeared. Ha hipster, what's up? Lu Qing answered the call happily. And Chaoyang laughed. I heard that you won't be returning to Wuyue Club next year? Probably. Lu Qing didn't try to hide it. I'm here on behalf of my master. Xinghai Club is waiting for you. And Chaoyang went straight to the point. Queen of Thought's invitation? Lu Qing felt smug for a few seconds and replied sincerely, I've already promised the Dragon King. Dragon King? And Chaoyang was shocked. After a while he laughed. Then I won't be long-winded about the conditions. How are you doing at Xinghai Club recently? Lu Qing changed the topic and asked casually. It's all right. Every few days someone will use you, Renli, and priest to educate me like other people's children. And Chaoyang replied casually. After chatting for a while he hung up the phone. The phone screen showed the time and the person of the call. 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Husky. Chapter 513. Lu Qing put down his phone and thought of the calls he had received in the past few days. He felt a little emotional and then realized something was missing. Yes, neither the Wuyue Club nor the Ice God sect had contacted him. Were they blocked by Master, or had they acquiesced to this situation and development? Lu Qing shook his head and laughed. He didn't think about it anymore and continued his moving business. He followed the rented van back and forth several times and became the main labor force today. He lifted the marble table with one hand that could only be lifted by 4 people. Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang sighed that practicing martial arts was so good. Lu Yanwei, Lu Yuanchang, and the others who came to help didn't dare to help. They could only carry some small items and dutifully cheer him on and yell, 666, a few times. When it was close to noon, Lu Qing entered his original home again to see if he had missed anything. The living room was mostly empty and full of junk. The cabinet, the TV, the single sofa, and the coffee table that had been used for many years were missing. At first glance, Lu Qing suddenly felt a sense of loss. He had a subtle feeling of leaving his hometown. In his opinion, the new home was full of unfamiliarity. Walking in it, there was no sense of familiarity. However, this was the place where he had lived for more than 10 years. It was a place that was engraved into his bones. It was the home in his heart. He sighed and walked around the living room, half checking and half reminiscing. He stopped at the door of the master bedroom and looked around. The wardrobe and desk were gone. Only the old clothes that his mother had finally abandoned were left on the floor. Looking at the empty space, he pictured the big mottled bed painted with red paint. Lu Cheng's expression was a little complicated. That was the bed that his mother had given to him when he married her. It had accompanied her throughout her marriage, witnessed his birth and growth, and witnessed his learning and hard work. When they got married, they didn't have enough resources. His mother was born in a rural family and naturally didn't have a dowry. For this reason, his omnipotent grandfather found wood and built the bed and furniture by himself, which were still in use today. Gazing deeply at her, Lu Qing came to the door of his room. Because the new house had bought a double bed and a sofa bed, his old bed was still quietly in the same place, just like it had been for so many years. However, the desk beside it, the bookshelf opposite it, and the wardrobe were all gone. Thinking of his tumultuous childhood, of his myopic youth who would sneakily read novels with the lamp under his quilt at night, of his youthful holidays where he slept until noon, and of Yanzhika lying there under the sun, of his pious and surging years of growth, Lu Qing had a moment of unwillingness to part with this place and his old friend. It was like saying goodbye to a childhood friend whom he had known for many years. I really want to bring it to my new home. Lu Qing took out his phone, took a picture of his memory and sent it to Yanzhika before she fell asleep. It seems like I don't have a home anymore. There was no past. Rub your head. When my family moved to this place, I also felt uncomfortable for a long time. Well, after 2 weeks I got used to it and accepted it. Yanzhika sent an emoji with tears of laughter. With Dad and Mom, I soon felt like home. Lu Qing casually picked up the few old books that he didn't want before, looked around the room one last time, and quietly closed the door, bidding farewell to the home that existed in his memories for more than 10 years. Taking the elevator to the new house, he took a shower to wash away the sweat and dirt, and changed out of the stained clothes. He reached out to wipe his hair and white steam rose. Passing by the kitchen, Lu Qing heard his father chatting with his grandparents in the living room, and saw his mother busily preparing the dishes. According to the customs of Xioshan, on the first day of moving, one had to treat one's family and friends to a meal. Mom, why go through so much trouble? Can't you just book 2 tables outside? Lu Qing leaned against the kitchen door and said disapprovingly. Qi Fang looked up and glared at him, not caring that he was the heavenly son of the age. What's the point of not having a warm stove at home? Mom, when it comes to customs, it's fine if it's convenient, but it doesn't matter if it's inconvenient. Everything should be done by yourself. Otherwise, it will become a feudal superstition. Lu Qing persuaded again. You're the one who's superstitious. Qi Fang's voice rose then softened. Today there are only relatives on both sides, not many people. Okay Mom, I'll help you. Lu Qing walked into the kitchen, took an apron and put it on. You'll help? Go. Go out and chat with your grandparents. Don't make trouble here. Your grandma and the rest will come to help later. Qi Fang didn't look happy at all. She waved her hand disdainfully as if she was shooing flies. My real mother. Lu Qing grabbed the knife and squeezed in front of the chopping board. Mom, I've cooked a few meals in America. Also, people who practice martial arts have good knife skills. Really? Qi Fang put down the kitchen knife and watched in surprise as her son chopped melons, vegetables, bones and meat. Not bad. She praised in her heart, but that wasn't the main point. She didn't hide her curiosity and asked, You guys really cooked in America? You were in charge? Lu Qing thought for a while and said, Usually I just cut the vegetables and Ku was in charge of cooking. Qi Fang smiled and nodded with satisfaction. You guys live a decent life. However, you have to take the initiative to cook some dishes. Don't let Ke do it. It's too smoky, she rambled on for a long time. Okay, I'll watch carefully later. When Lu Qing answered, his hands didn't stop at all. The sound of the chopping continued. After a while, he finished preparing most of the dishes. Seeing that the countertop was full, he stopped and watched his mom cook. I'm studying hard. He took a picture and sent it to Ko. I miss your food. Yanjika, who had washed up and was lying in bed, suddenly felt hungry. After watching for more than 10 minutes, Lu Qing volunteered to cook the familiar stir-fried beef. He handed the phone to Qi Fang and said, Mom, help me take a video later. Just press here and don't let go. Yes, here. It will stop by itself when you let go. Seriously, what's there to take? Qi Fang muttered and aimed the phone at her son. She couldn't understand young people nowadays. Taking videos while cooking. Mom, you can press the button now. Lu Qing poured the beef into the oil and started to stir-fry. When it was time for the side dishes, he deliberately showed off. He held the pot with one hand and threw the food like a chef. Not only that, but he also controlled his strength precisely. Sometimes he threw the word one, sometimes he threw the word chuan, and sometimes it was raining flowers. After putting the fragrant dishes on the plate, Lu Qing took back the phone from his stunned mom and sent the video to Yanjika. Not long after, the girl said with a blank expression, I've never seen such a boring person like you. What the hell is this fancy stir-frying? Qi Fang had already come to her senses. She pushed her son out of the kitchen angrily. Go and play by yourself. She doesn't know how to appreciate. Lu Qing spread his hands and shook his head in amusement. He walked to the living room. At this moment he suddenly felt a sense of belonging to this place. When Lu Qing's second uncle, second aunt and grandma arrived and went into the kitchen to help, the warm stove wine was finally ready before 1 o'clock. As there were many people, they were divided into 2 tables. One was the dining room for those who liked to drink, and the other was the coffee table, sofa and low chairs for those who were focused on eating. As the head of the household, Lu Jisheng raised his wine glass and said a few words. After that, everyone congratulated him on moving into the house. After eating and drinking, some people played mahjong, some played pig trotting, some played fight the landlord, some played chess and some played online games. They had a pleasant afternoon. After dinner, Lu Cheng's grandpa and grandpa were sent home by his uncle who didn't drink. His grandparents who came from Ningxue stayed in the guest room. Qi Yunfei and Qin Xiaoxiao stayed in the guest room. His aunt Qi Yin and uncle Chen Wenghua slept in the separate study. There was a sofa that could be folded into a bed. Lu Qing looked at the unfamiliar sofa in the living room and was speechless for a long time. First day in a new house and I'm going to be a director, again? Covering face expression and sighing expression, he said to his wife. Yanjika, who was in class, replied with 3 words, laugh out loud. On October 3rd, Lu Qing practiced as usual. In his spare time, he went to Qin Rui's martial arts club. At night, he took the high-speed train back to Songqing because the martial arts club would resume the special training the next morning. At 8 o'clock the next day in the martial arts arena of Songqing University, the special training team, which had swelled to more than 20 people, finally saw Coach Lu after a long time. Some people even took photos and posted them on Weibo and WeChat moments. They were so moved that their eyes were brimming with tears. After finishing the preliminary training, Lu Qing put his hands behind his back and asked everyone to come out and practice one by one. After that, he said, Senior Li Mao, Talker, He and Delete, you can participate in the professional ranking event at the end of October. Jin Lu, Jin Yan, you can go too. You may not pass, but it's good to have some experience. As for the newcomer Deng Yang, he had gotten the professional 9th pin certificate before entering university. As for the 8th pin Dan stage, he couldn't be rushed. Chapter 5:14. Hearing Lu Cheng's words, Li Mao and Kai Zongming were delighted, as if they had been waiting for a long time. They were strong enough to get the certificate in April, but they were delayed by the national competition and had to wait until now. As the defending champion, Songqing University was undoubtedly the seed of the division and would enter the group directly. They would only appear on the stage of the new university martial arts competition at the end of November. On the other hand, He Zi and Wang Dali were both excited and apprehensive. At times, they felt that they had a high chance of getting the professional 9th pin certificate if they gave it a try. At other times, they felt that they were still lacking and that it would be safer to wait for another half a year. There was no need for them to be tortured. As for Jin Lu and Mu Jinyin, they had an indifferent attitude. To them, the chances of them breaking through the encirclement were slim. Senior Lu, Coach Lu, we haven't fought in a long time. I would like to apply for actual combat in the team to prepare for the ranking event. Wang Dali, who looked like someone released from a labor camp, raised his hand and suggested. Sure. Lu Qing nodded with a smile without hesitation. With his current strength, he was more than enough to be their referee. I'll sign up first. I want to challenge He. Wang Dali stepped out first. His eyes were bright and his tone was resolute, as if he had been planning this for a long time. Why? Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. Why does it feel like there's a grudge between them? Wang Dali replied with grief and indignation. The last few times we played werewolf, she would always be the first to kill me. I can't play this stupid game anymore. As soon as he finished, He, whose hair had just reached her ears, laughed with the other female team members. Who asked someone to look so fierce? What a deep hatred. Lu Qing sighed with emotion. Coach Lu, Senior Lu will play this afternoon and then have a meal together. Do you want to join us? He asked expectantly. The freshmen who had just joined the special training team, regardless of gender, immediately focused their eyes on Lu Qing. The National Day holiday, special training in the morning, nothing in the afternoon. Feeling their expectant and inviting gazes, Lu Qing thought for a while and said, I won't be joining the game. I have something to do in the afternoon. In the morning he had to take on a part-time job as a coach and especially spare some time to video chat with Ku, who was in her free state at night. He had almost no time to practice, so he had to make up for it in the afternoon. This would be his domestic work and rest routine for the next 1 or 2 years, and it would not be easily changed unless there was an emergency or too big of an accident. When everyone's expressions turned to disappointment and frustration, he added with a smile, That's right. No problem. Once you've made the reservation, give me the time and place. Okay. Deng Yang and the others answered in unison and became excited again. In the following actual combat training and daily cultivation, they were full of motivation and enthusiasm. When it was almost 11 o'clock, Lu Qing made sure that Yan Zhika had finished her homework and reports. He corrected each of them and asked them to practice in groups. Then he entered the locker room and shared all the changes in the martial arts club with Yan Zhika in a quiet environment. After the chat came to an end, he walked out and planned to go to the cafeteria to fill his stomach while the girl was washing her face. He would go back to the dorm and continue the video call. At this moment, a beautiful freshman wearing a white martial arts suit with black edges ran over from the female locker room. Her eyes were full of excitement and her cheeks were red as she said, Coach Lu, can I have your autograph? No, 2 autographs. Okay. Lu Qing usually wouldn't refuse such a request. He smiled and said, Call me senior brother Lu. Coach Lu has already gone offline. Look, it's already past 12. The girl was amused and relaxed a lot. She unfolded the white t-shirt in her left hand and handed the pen to him. She said crisply, Senior brother Lu, please sign here first. Lu Qing didn't say anything. He picked up the pen and wrote his name on the front of the shirt. Damn it, I haven't signed for a long time. I'm rusty now. Although I'm not rusty, it doesn't look good either. After putting away the t-shirt, the girl took out a talismanic necklace from her pocket. Its pendant was golden, like some mythical beast in legends. Senior brother Lu, can I engrave my name on the pendant? The first-year girl nervously took out the pen used for micro-engraving. What the hell? At this moment, Lu Qing was dumbfounded. This was the first time he had seen such a request for an autograph. The student girl's lips trembled as she stammered, My cousin asked me to help her. She's very superstitious and her luck isn't very good. She's always unlucky. Senior brother Lu, don't you have the ability to reflect curses and bad luck? She wanted to ask for a protective amulet with your signature, so that she could avoid disasters and protect herself. There's such a thing? Lu Qing was dumbfounded and momentarily speechless. Student, you can't be superstitious. Why does this sentence sound so familiar? Senior brother Lu, if you're not willing, then forget it. The girl stole a glance at her idol and said in a stutter. Lu Qing came back to his senses and shook his head with a smile. It's okay. Just this once. He took the micro-engraving pen, lowered his elbow and tightened his wrist. Channeling his strength, he engraved Lu Qing on the golden pendant and passed it to the first-year student. Thank you, senior brother Lu, the girl thanked him happily and excitedly. On the way back, she turned around and bowed her head slightly. At this time, more than half of the special training members had gathered and were planning to leave for the reserved cafe to play Werewolf Kill. Lunch would also be served there. Senior brother Lu, bye-bye. They waved goodbye cheerfully, leaving Lu Qing alone. Sigh, it seems that in other people's eyes, I'm gradually not very sociable and don't like to participate in activities. Maybe they'll think that I'm getting more and more arrogant. Lu Qing shook his head and smiled, half self-deprecating and half lamenting. I really don't have time. What are you laughing at? Little Ming's voice came from the back of the locker room. Lu Qing turned his head and looked at Kai Zongming, who had already changed his clothes. I'm laughing at why you're not participating? Isn't that nonsense? Fang Yuan is leaving on the 7th. Kai Zongming replied with a look of disdain. I've told you 3 times and you can't even remember. Are you entering old age ahead of time? Really 3 times? Lu Qing racked his brain but couldn't find the corresponding memory. For a moment he was at a loss. No. Little Ming answered sincerely. Come here, I promise I won't beat you to death. Lu Qing said, grinding his teeth. Kai Zongming laughed and asked, Qing, what do you think is the probability of me getting a certificate in this ranking event? If you're lucky enough, you're basically guaranteed to get it. Lu Qing answered honestly. That's good. Don't you know how much effort it took me to resist showing off my strength when I was with my former classmates, friends and relatives during the summer vacation? I can't just jump out and flex my muscles, kick the pillar or say that I'm an expert now, right? How embarrassing. Kai Zongming said with imagination running wild. When I get the certificate, I'll slap it in front of them and they won't have to say anything anymore. What's the difference between the 2 methods? Lu Qing asked, amused. Don't you think the latter method is more subtle? Kai Zongming made a retracting gesture. I don't think so. They're both equally stupid. Lu Qing answered without hesitation. After joking and teasing each other, they left the martial arts arena. One went to the cafeteria while the other went to the school cafeteria to meet up with Fang Yuan. The next few days went by as usual. Lu Qing booked an early flight to America so that he could make it back in time to supervise the ranking event. Smith hummed a soundless melody and walked into the office with light steps. During this time he had been very relaxed. The tasks assigned to him were quite simple, so he didn't have to worry about them. What a wonderful life. Thank God. He had just made a cup of coffee and sat down when he suddenly received a call from the director, asking him to come over. What's the task this time? Smith knocked on his boss's door with curiosity and expectation. Monitor him. You should be very familiar with it. I don't need to say more, right? The director turned the computer screen around and a familiar face came into Smith's sight. Yellow skin, black hair, chiseled features, a smile on his face and the word danger, in red beside it. It was Lu Qing. Smith's eyes widened and his mouth opened little by little. He blurted out, Why is he here again? Is there an end to this? In the following days Lu Qing didn't make things difficult for Smith, who was on tenterhooks. He lived a peaceful life, kept a low profile and didn't do anything out of line. In order to avoid the limelight, he planned to find a chance to challenge the Grandmaster of Martial Arts in the next semester. In the process, Kai Zongming and Li Mao successfully obtained the professional 9th pin certificate. Ez, after a tough battle, barely managed to obtain the certificate. Wang Dali, who was slightly weaker and unlucky, failed in the group stage. Jin Lu and Mu Jinyan were too far apart. It was purely based on experience. However, the addition of 4 professional 9th pin fighters, Deng Yang brought his own certificate, made the martial arts club in the limelight at Songqing University again. More students were willing to join the martial arts class. As a last resort, the martial arts class added 1, 3, and 5 for students who didn't make it to the next round. At the end of November, the new National University Martial Arts Competitions Division Group stage started. Songqing University's first opponent was the weaker Celestial Academy. Lu Qing, who came back from America for the 3rd time, didn't put himself in the lineup. He put the newcomer Deng Yang as a substitute. Even so, Li Mao, who was in charge of the field, didn't do much. Kai Zongming, who dominated the conversation time, and the new calf He almost completed 3 kills. On the first weekend of December, Songqing University welcomed its old rival, Shannon University Martial Arts Club. In the away team's locker room, Lin Xiaoji, who had a high ponytail, sighed and said, "Inhuman. How can we fight? Luckily I said last year that we would wait for the year after next year. It should be next year. At that time, Peng Liyun will graduate and Lu Qing will enter the professional competition in advance. This is our chance." Before the competition started, she was already thinking about the next time. Mu Yu, old man Mu, glanced at her from the blessed Buddha beads, exquisite crosses and other items. He fixed his eyes on the new collarbone necklace on Lin Xiaoji's neck. Your amulet is rare. He asked a question that had been bothering him for a while. Lin Xiaoji smiled proudly. Yes, it's rare. There should be only one in the world. It's Lu Cheng's amulet that blocks bad luck. What's that? Muyu and Jean Dolly were confused. Lu Cheng's amulet? I asked someone to make a pendant of the sky-shaking roar. I asked my cousin who just entered Songqing University to get Lu Cheng to sign his name and bless it. It will definitely block bad luck. What theory is that? Muyu blurted out. Metaphysics theory. Lin Xiaoji answered confidently. I'm now a believer of Lu Cheng. Chapter 515. Considering Songqing University's current situation, there was no need to arrange a formation for the match against Shannon. As usual, Lu Cheng let Kai Zongming be the vanguard so that he could improve his verbal skills. In the middle, the newcomer Deng Yang would take the stage for more actual combat. However, unlike the previous match, Lu Cheng put himself in the starting lineup and stayed at the end without the slightest carelessness. After all, Bane Muyu's supernatural ability was comparable to a Dan stage fighter, and he was unpredictable and hard to defend against. If he lost here and advanced to the next round as the second in the group, it was very likely that he would have to face Shan Bei in advance. Without Lin Ke, it would be difficult for him to win against Peng Liyun and Fang Zhirong on his own. Coming out of the locker room, Lu Cheng heard a tsunami of cheers before he had time to look around. Those were champion and good luck. The crowd's will was strong enough to shake a mountain. This was the atmosphere of the home ground. Even the most indifferent people would feel their blood boiling in such a situation. The members of Songqing University Martial Arts Club waved at the same time to both sides, which brought more enthusiastic cheers. After a few steps, Lu Cheng glanced around and saw an acquaintance. It was Xu Rui, a reporter from Songqing TV station. She was wearing her usual business attire. Her neat and refreshing short hair was long enough to reach her shoulders, which added to her feminine charm and highlighted her delicate oval face. She's still a reporter? The logo on her microphone doesn't look like she's from Songqing TV station. Did she change jobs? Lu Cheng nodded at Xu Rui as a form of greeting, despite the doubts in his mind. Xu Rui adhered to the requirements of the interview and didn't disturb them before the match. She only responded with a smile. After a short wait, the referee stepped into the arena. The broadcast announced the names of both sides. The first round, Kai Zongming versus Lin Xiaoji. It said that Lin Xiaoji has touched the threshold of Dan's stage. If you raise your proud tail, you'll be embarrassed. Lu Cheng said to Talker, half teasing and half reminding him. Damn it, you're so misleading. Luckily I'm a gentleman. Kai Zongming said sarcastically. Don't worry. I'm the best at talking to girls. *CK dirty people see dirty things. Get out of here. Lu Cheng gave Little Ming a slap on his face and pushed him out of his seat. He didn't even need to do the fist bump to encourage him. Kai Zongming tidied up his clothes and hairstyle, then slowly walked up the stone steps and onto the arena. Then he was a little dumbfounded to see Lin Xiaoji standing next to the competition supervisor, taking out one item after another, taking out one item after another. At the end, she even carefully undid the clavicle hanging around her neck and handed it to the supervisor, repeatedly reminding him not to lose it. After doing all this, Lin Xiaoji tied her ponytail a little higher and walked lightly to the opposite side of the enemy. She pointed to her sleeve and smiled proudly. Kai Zongming took a closer look and realized that there was a circle of words embroidered on it. The words Taishang Laojun were written on the front. As expected of a grandmaster of metaphysics, for a moment, Little Ming felt like he had been defeated. The referee glanced at both sides, raised his right hand, and announced the start of the conversation. Kai Zongming relaxed and revealed a sincere and brilliant smile. Last year our two clubs were in the same group. As a substitute of amateur second pin, I had the honor to witness the fight between you and senior brother Sun Jian. It was a very calm and friendly opening, and it sounded more like he was trying to strike up a conversation with a girl. The referee listened quietly from the side. Lin Xiaoji nodded with a smile and said nothing. At this moment, Kai Zongming suddenly changed the topic. At that time you were already a top 9th pin fighter. Now, a year later I, an amateur second pin, have gotten a professional 9th pin certificate. I think I'm strong, but you're still at the same level. Don't you feel ashamed? Don't you think it's time to re-examine whether you're suitable for the path of martial arts? You're only a junior. You still have time to focus on your studies? Similar words poured out endlessly, accompanied by a mocking expression. Even the referee had some doubts in his heart. Don't hit people in the face, don't expose people's shortcomings. Being humiliated like this, I definitely can't stand it. However, Lin Xiaoji raised the corner of her mouth and her expression didn't change. Even her eyes didn't show any sign of anger. I've met a strong opponent. Kai Zongming pulled himself together and changed 3 strategies in a row. But his opponent remained calm and responded with a faint smile. Her self-restraint was off the charts. Soon, the 3-minute conversation was about to end. Lin Xiaoji raised her hand with a smile, put her fingers into her ears and slowly pinched out 2 earplugs. What the hell? Kai Zongming's eyes bulged. He was dumbfounded on the spot. So I was playing the lute to a cow. You deserve earplugs consecrated by 9 eminent monks chanting scriptures. Lin Xiaoji snapped her fingers and flicked the earplugs out of the arena. They fell next to the referee. There were also words engraved on them. When put together they read, I'm not listening, I'm not listening. Isn't this against the rules? Kai Zongming immediately turned his head and asked the referee. It's not a weapon, nor is it sharp or hard. Theoretically, it's no different from plugging your ears with your fingers, the referee explained. There's a difference. There's a big difference. If I saw her plugging her ears with her fingers, I would have stopped talking. Do you know how much effort I've wasted? Kai Zongming was about to speak when he saw the referee raise his right hand and was about to swing it down. He quickly gathered his thoughts and turned his attention back to the match. In the following battle, Lin Xiaoji, who was already better than Kai Zongming, displayed her tiger form, dragon form, snake form and leopard form martial arts to the fullest. Her movements were smooth and controlled, making it difficult for Kai Zongming, who couldn't achieve his strategic goal in the conversation time. Even if he had hundreds of tricks up his sleeve, he couldn't turn the tables and find an opportunity. After struggling for 2 or 3 minutes, he was defeated by a round of tremor punch. I told you. Don't be arrogant. Don't think that no one can defeat you in the conversation time. Facing the depressed little Ming, Lu Cheng as his best friend, showed him what a friendship between men was. Get lost. Kai Zongming replied in a bad mood. Then he fell into deep thought. Cheng, what if all the opponents in the future don't know their manners and plug their ears with their fingers? What should I do? Practice a martial art of the lion's roar style and become a human loudspeaker. The most basic way was to practice his inner strength, and not pin his hopes on the conversation time. That makes sense. Kai Zongming nodded thoughtfully and began to think about where he could get a similar martial art. At this time Deng Yang, who had just entered the arena, had already started a fierce fight with Lin Xiaoji. The usually sunny young man had turned into a muscular barbarian with a jade-like complexion. Facing the enemy he did not block but only resisted and attacked. He had combined the quenching jade formula of the Shizhou sect and the 24 blizzard strikes into one. He was even fiercer than Lin Ke and Lu Cheng. He was like a human bulldozer. Lin Xiaoji, who was already in a tough battle, couldn't hold on any longer. She slowed down a bit and allowed Deng Yang to close in on her. She used her chest and shoulder to block a chopping punch and a tremor punch respectively. Bam bam bam. Deng Yang only protected his vital parts and attacked crazily. He successfully defeated Lin Xiaoji in the close-range combat, which he was best at. In the new round he and Jean Dali played a game of cat and mouse. They chased each other around the arena and bumped into each other occasionally. After a full 5 or 6 minutes both of them were exhausted. Inevitably they entered the close-range combat phase, which was Deng Yang's strength. The result was no surprise. After winning 2 rounds in a row, he finally faced the enemy's leading general, Bane Muyu. Instead of being afraid he was eager to have a try. Begin. With the referee's announcement, Deng Yang took a step forward cautiously and steadily. However, at this moment he felt a twitch in his weak calf. Before he could stabilize his foot, his ankle twisted to the side and deformed. As a top professional 9th pin fighter, he twisted his ankle on flat ground. Although his body was close to its limit, it was still incredible. With a twisted ankle, the bulldozer could no longer run and was completely passive. Soon he was defeated by Old Man Mu. His supernatural ability seems to have gotten stronger again, and his martial arts skills seem to have improved quite a bit. His punches and kicks are starting to show signs of retracting. Not bad. Lu Qing watched with interest. When Deng Yang returned, he slowly unzipped his pants, took off his jacket and stood up. He didn't seem to mind giving the Bane a chance to catch his breath. At this moment, the martial arts arena exploded with voices. Everyone was shouting a name, calling the hero the king of the arena. Lu Qing. Chapter 5:16. Enjoying the cheers that were exclusive to him, Lu Qing followed the path of glory to the arena unhurriedly. He stood in front of Muyu, who had aged prematurely. When the referee was about to raise his hand to announce the start of the 5th round, Lu Qing suddenly smiled and looked at his opponent. Congratulations. You have hope of reaching the dance stage. Muyu was stunned for a few seconds. He asked blankly, You can tell? Lu Qing had fought no less than 10 challenge tournaments since he vaguely felt like he was withdrawing his supernatural ability. Perhaps it was because his supernatural ability was too eye-catching that it attracted most of the attention. No one had noticed it. I've always had a good eye, Lu Qing answered calmly. Seeing that Lu Qing didn't mind giving Muyu more time to recover, the referee, who was weaker than him, didn't care and wasn't in a hurry to start the battle. An inhuman stage fighter had enough control to not cause any serious damage to a fighter who hadn't reached the Dan stage or was only at professional 7th or 8th pin. Hearing this, Muyu sighed and said, That's right. It's all thanks to you. Why do you say that? Lu Qing asked with interest. Last year's comedy was a wake-up call for him? Muyu smiled bitterly and answered calmly, Yes. In the past few years, my supernatural ability was too dazzling. Not only did it blind my enemies, but it also blinded myself. Although I didn't use it much so that it wouldn't backfire on my friends, I always regarded it as my biggest reliance and the most fundamental thing. I had strong confidence in it and spent most of my energy on how to improve it and weaken its backfire. It wasn't until I met you and was rebounded with misfortune that I finally understood what it meant to be powerless. Only then did I truly wake up and strengthen my own training. Fortunately, it wasn't too late and I barely managed to gain some results. However, whether I could reach the Dan stage is still up for debate. It's funny to say that my supernatural ability actually improved because of this, breaking through my previous stagnation. It was completely out of my expectations. Lu Qing nodded slightly. Before I reached the Dan stage, my master said something similar. Muyu took a deep breath and turned his attention back to the match. He cupped his hands and said, Although I have no hope of winning, I still want to learn from you. Please? Lu Qing lowered his waist and sat down. He stretched out his left palm and got into a starting position. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. A year had passed and everyone was no longer the same. In the following battle, Muyu didn't use misfortune. Although his supernatural ability had become stronger thanks to the improvement of his own realm and strength, his opponent's improvement was even more ridiculous. There was a huge gap between a prodigy and a beginner martial artist. In the end, thanks to Lu Qing's cooperation, he used all his skills except for his supernatural ability. He displayed all the Xingyi skills he had learned to the extreme. He almost felt like he had been tempered into steel by his opponent's fists. After a moment of brilliance, he began to slide down. He took the initiative to stop and looked at Lu Qing, who wasn't affected by him at all. He respectfully bowed and said, Thank you for your advice. I wouldn't dare, Lu Qing replied with a smile. The audience was quite disappointed. They had taken out their phones early on, wanting to record a comedy. Unfortunately, Muyu knew his place and didn't let them do as they wished. Amid the applause, Lu Qing left the ring and saw Xu Rui standing in front of him. Hi, long time no see. The reporter girl with only one dimple smiled and waved her hand. Maybe it's because you jumped ship. Lu Qing made a joke. Xu Rui was calmer than she had been in the past 2 years. She smiled and said, Actually, I have to thank you. Oh, is today a collective thank you day? Muyu and now Xu Rui? Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh and asked curiously, Why? Didn't I do an exclusive interview and special program for you and the martial arts club? As you and Lin Kei become more and more famous, more and more people are looking for these resources. As for me, I'm not bad looking. Well, I'm not bad at all. I'm also good at martial arts. I've slowly accumulated some popularity and was spotted by the provincial TV station. I'm afraid I won't be a frontline reporter anymore in the future. If you're invited to any program, you have to do me a favor. Xu Rui didn't change her self-esteem. Good martial arts? Is it the ability to tell cold jokes with brother-in-law? Lu Qing secretly ridiculed and replied in a good mood, As long as I'm free. Xu Rui nodded with satisfaction and turned to gossip. I've been paying attention in the last 2 matches. Didn't your girlfriend come? Does this count as an official interview? Lu Cheng glanced at the cameraman beside Xu Rui. Not really. We haven't filmed it yet. Xu Rui looked at Lu Cheng with a smile and waited for his answer. Ku went to study in America. Lu Cheng answered concisely. America? Is it going to be winter break soon? Xu Rui rolled her eyes and pondered. She had considered studying abroad and had collected a lot of information. She had some understanding of this. Yes, it'll be a week before Christmas. It'll be 4 weeks in total. Lu Cheng didn't hide his joy. However, after Ku came back, she had to stay at her grandparents' house for a few days and Jingke and Jiangnan's grandparents' house for a few days. She had to accompany her father-in-law and mother-in-law, and she had to keep in touch with her best friends. She didn't really have much time alone with him. After all, she had to participate in the prefectural competition here. She couldn't stay in Songqing all the time. Yeah, it's okay. I can go back to Xioshan on Monday and Songqing on Friday. I can be a not-so-competent coach. They've already gotten used to Coach Lu's absence, just like how Smith is used to my presence. Just as he was thinking about this topic, Xu Rui suddenly exhaled and said with emotion, If it weren't for you, I would feel that Songqing University Martial Arts Club has become unfamiliar. Compared to last year at this time, half of the members have left, right? Kosher Lin Ke. Alright, how's Lin Ke's injury? I don't see any news on the internet. He started recovery training in August and recovered in November. He should be at the level of a strong 6 now. Lu Cheng answered honestly. This was all information he got from Ku. As teammates and relatives who had fought side by side, he had actually called to show concern for his brother-in-law. However, the whole process was very awkward. He was racking his brains to find a topic to talk about and only answered with yes, 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 and so on. The more Lu Cheng talked, the less confident he became. He had no choice but to hang up in a hurry. In this regard, Yanjika's words soothed his wounds. My brother is already treating you as a friend by listening to you ramble on for a minute and not directly saying goodbye. After hearing Lu Cheng's description, Xu Rui smiled and said, That's good. I'm happy that everyone is getting better. Reporter Xu, you don't feel right. You're a bit of a hipster. However, this has nothing to do with me. Lu Cheng pointed to his teammates. Let's do the official interview. They're all waiting. Okay. Xu Rui changed the topic to the new university martial arts competitions. This year, the strong and the weak are too obvious. The other contestants can only look up to you guys at the inhuman stage. However, it's not without suspense. For example, you guys will definitely meet Shanbei in the top 4 round robin of the division competition. Are you ready to fight with Peng Liyun before the national competition? It depends. Lu Cheng didn't dare to say with certainty. Since the breakthrough of the ice mirror, his martial arts strength had taken a big leap forward. However, the improvement had been very slow. Even he, who had experienced the speed of a tortoise from a quasi-6 to an inhuman stage, almost couldn't adapt. Compared to now, he could be called a high-speed train. After more than 2 months, he had only become slightly stronger. According to the data, except for the freaks like the living Buddha and the warrior sage, most of the mighty ones with physical invulnerability were in a similar state when they were at the inhuman stage. Therefore, the earlier he reached the high pin and the more time he had to reach the physical invulnerability stage, the higher his chances. Well, I feel like I haven't settled down enough. While Xu Rui was interviewing Lu Cheng, the Shannon University team returned to the locker room after a short post-match interview. Lin Xiaoji carefully entered the bathroom. She took off her clothes and all her protective items, leaving only the collarbone necklace on her neck. She turned the tap to release hot water. While waiting for the temperature to rise, she held the sky-shattering Ho pendant with Lu Cheng's name engraved on it in one hand and put her hands together in front of her, chanting. After the ceremony, the temperature of the water was just right. She walked under the shower and felt her body instinctively relax. After a while of fear, Lin Xiaoji finished the shower without any mishap. Just as she was about to put on her clothes and go out, she suddenly heard the sound of footsteps and Jean Dali's shout from the opposite side. What's wrong? Lin Xiaoji raised her voice and asked. Nothing, I just did a split. Jean Dali replied with annoyance. Poor thing. Lin Xiaoji nodded her head sadly and covered her mouth to show sympathy. After a few seconds, she finally couldn't help but laugh out loud. Believe in Lu Cheng, avoid bad luck. Whoever uses it knows. After that, Songqing University's journey was smooth sailing and they advanced triumphantly. Under Yanjika's witness, they once again entered the top 4 round robin. Their first opponent was the Shanbei University Martial Arts Club. On Christmas afternoon, Lu Cheng, who was pretending to be a couple but actually a couple, suddenly felt his phone vibrate. He picked it up and saw that it was from Priest Peng Liyun. Lu Cheng whispered to Yan Zhika, then picked up the phone. "Hey Priest, how come you're free to call me?" Peng Liyun smiled. "I just wanted to let you know that I probably won't be in the next match. We'll fight again in April next year." "To settle down?" Lu Cheng asked thoughtfully. "Aren't you there too?" Peng Liyun replied leisurely. After that, both of them laughed at the same time. They had a tacit understanding. Peng Liyun hadn't fought since the King of Youth Pro League. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, had only played 2 games of guiding chess since the end of the 2 unknown actual matches in America. After putting down the phone, he was about to tell Yan Zhika about what had just happened when he suddenly received a message from the military contact, Rapid March. "There's progress on the wholeness formula. P.S. Looking for a recommendation on Monday." Chapter 517. Lu Cheng perked up when he heard that there was some progress on the wholeness formula. He immediately sensed that something was amiss and quickly typed, "Is there anything missing? Otherwise it wouldn't be progress but already in his hands. Also, he must have something else to say to me at this juncture." Rapid March replied quickly, "The wholeness formula doesn't belong to the extreme Hadu sect. It was coincidentally obtained by Muko Yamashita when he was buying an antique. After a few months of hard work, he finally relented and was willing to accept the proposal of exchanging the swordsman formula for the wholeness formula. However, there is a condition. He wishes to challenge you to a duel in a private setting with no spectators. Both parties will appoint a referee. He chooses the venue and you decide the time, but it's best if it's within a month. A few months of hard work." Lu Cheng suddenly smelled a thrilling scent when he saw these words. Although it was an equivalent exchange in the end, Muko Yamashita must have gone through a lot of scheming and espionage to agree. It definitely wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. During the King of Youth Pro League, I was already able to defeat Muko Yamashita even before I reached the inhuman stage. Now that 4 months have passed and it's obvious that I've stabilized, he still dares to challenge me. I'm afraid he must have encountered something else and is more confident." After a few seconds of silence, Lu Cheng replied quickly, "All right then. Let's do it on the 20th of January. To be honest, this interrupted his consolidation and accumulation of strength midway and left him lacking in his state of mind. However, gathering the 9 words formula was more important than healing his master's old injury and Ku's health. He was willing to compromise for this. Besides, when I go to America in February to spend the new year with Ku, I'll start looking for opportunities to challenge grandmasters of martial arts as a warm-up for the nationals in April. It's fine if it's half a month earlier." Rapid March replied concisely, "Then I'll pass on your message to Muko Yamashita." Lu Cheng put down his phone, condensed his voice and shared the 2 matters with Yan Zhika. "Muko Yamashita has some confidence now." The girl stirred the milk in her cup thoughtfully. "But choosing a private setting and rejecting the spectators shows that he's not that confident. This matter would be arranged by the military. The referee would most likely be a physical invulnerability mighty one, so she was relatively assured." "I think so too." Lu Cheng laughed and said, "If he doesn't improve, I won't be interested in fighting with him again." He did not mention that it had interrupted his meditation. "Yes. You still have to be careful of the location he chooses. The home field advantage is no joke." "I'll help you find out which environment is most suitable for the martial arts of the extreme Hadu sect." Yan Zhika analyzed excitedly. In the end, she pounded the table lightly and said, "How infuriating. I can't watch the fight live. Cheer for my Cheng." "That's why I set the date after you start school." Lu Cheng said with a smile, "We can't waste our time together. You don't even blush when you say mushy things now." Yan Zhika deliberately widened her eyes and said, "Just like how a certain someone is becoming more and more natural when talking dirty." Lu Cheng teased, preparing himself for a beating. "I didn't." Yan Zhika was both embarrassed and annoyed. She turned sideways and elbowed Lu Cheng with the strength of a kitten. Since they were in a public place like the dessert shop, she stopped flirting and turned to look at Lu Cheng. "Cheng, I think the wholeness formula is a clue. With the military and resources over there, if there are any remaining 9 words formulas in China, they should have already been found. There have been too many periods of war in our history. It's normal for things to end up in Japan, Korea, Miluo, and other places with similar cultures." She could see that Lu Qing cared a lot about the 9 words formulas. Naturally, she wanted her husband to get what he wanted. That's true. When I go to Japan this time, I'll communicate with the military. It'll be much better than me doing it alone. Lu Qing had long realized the limitations of a martial artist. Without a corresponding supernatural ability, professional matters should be left to the professionals. The young couple chatted happily on this topic until the evening when Gu Shuang called. They went to meet up and taste the pot dish recommended by this local tyrant. It came from Guangnan and had been localized and improved. It was quite suitable for the taste of Gaofan people, but there were not many who could do it well. Yes, Lu Qing and Yan Zhika came to Gaofan yesterday to spend Christmas Eve. In the small private room, Gu Shuang took off her black down jacket and fixed her wavy hair. She sat down and snickered at the couple. Should I say Merry Christmas Eve? It was Christmas Day. Yan Zhika's pretty face flushed red. She pretended not to care and snorted. Didn't you spend Christmas Eve with your boyfriend? No, I broke up with him yesterday. Gu Shuang answered with a smile, not a hint of sadness. She wore light makeup and seemed to have done some makeup. Her eyes were more delicate and charming than before. So soon? It's only been 2 months, right? Yan Zhika blurted out in surprise. I don't feel anything for him anymore. He's not enough for me to stay for long. Gu Shuang seemed to be talking about going to the supermarket to buy fruits. Lu Qing was speechless. He couldn't understand her world. He's not manly. He likes to hang around me, but he's not romantic at all. He's not like your Cheng who rushed to America to celebrate your birthday and give you a surprise. Comparisons are odious. Gu Shuang skillfully changed the topic to Yan Zhika. December 9th was the girl's birthday. Since she was going back to China for the holidays and Lu Qing had only left America at the end of November, they agreed to have a video call and express gift. However, Lu Qing secretly booked a ticket. After the competition on December 7th, they set off again the next day. After more than 10 hours of bumpy flight, they landed in front of a confused Smith. Yan Zhika didn't notice because there was internet access in the cabin. On the day of her birthday, she was surprised to see that Lu Qing's background was her own lawn. While feeling touched and happy, she mercilessly punished Lu Qing for his prodigal behavior. She punished Lu Qing until he was beaming with joy. She also showed off their affection in her circle of friends and on Twitter, which made Gu Shuang and Song Li both envious and amazed. It was said that Du Liu lamented other people's children many times because of this. What surprise! It's more like a shock. You don't listen to me at all and act on your own. Yan Zhika rolled her eyes at Lu Qing happily. This was also what she said when she showed off their affection. Girls really don't mean what they say sometimes. While men are the same. Lu Qing tried his best to remain silent while the two girls were chatting. Just then there was a knock on the door. Gu Shuang clapped and laughed. The food is here. I'm starving. After that she shouted to the outside, you can come in. With a creak, the door of the private room opened. A well-dressed and average-looking boy appeared. He looked at Gu Shuang with bloodshot eyes. Shuang, why did you break up? Why are you here? Gu Shuang frowned. She got up and tried to push the boy out of the private room. Didn't I tell you? I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything anymore. The boy stared at Gu Shuang and muttered to himself, but everything was fine the day before yesterday. Did I do something wrong? I seem to be watching a melodramatic scene play out in front of me. Lu Qing laughed and shook his head. He turned to look at Ku, only to see her face full of disappointment. She almost covered her face and sighed. The couple really couldn't interfere in this kind of thing. They didn't know how to either. After arguing for a while, Gu Shuang saw that the boy was difficult to deal with. She put on a serious face and said, you go back first. We'll talk tomorrow. Seriously, you're disturbing my mood for dinner. Tomorrow? The boy was absent-minded. His eyes suddenly showed some evil. I didn't believe what others said about you. I always thought you were a very simple and kind girl. It turns out you're just playing around. You don't have feelings at all. After listening to him, Gu Shuang's face turned cold. She replied with disdain, yes, I'm that kind of person. Bitch, you bitch. The boy suddenly took out a dagger from his pocket and stabbed it between Gu Shuang's chest and abdomen. The polished metal reflected a cold light under the lights. At this moment the world seemed to slow down. Extreme fear emerged in Gu Shuang's heart. She couldn't dodge and could only watch the dagger get closer and closer. Her mind seemed to be able to imagine the severe pain that would follow, and the scream in her throat was ready to be released. Just as she was at her most desperate, a chopstick suddenly flew over and hit the side of the dagger, sending it flying and stabbing into the wall, shaking and trembling. When the boy's killing intent exploded, Lu Qing sensed it. He picked up the chopstick and flicked it. Then he stepped on the ground and rushed out. He subdued the boy with one hand. Yan Zhika fell behind and held Gu Shuang. "Call the police." Lu Qing turned to look at his wife and her best friend and said calmly. Gu Shuang was trembling with fear. Hearing this, she calmed down a little. She hurriedly returned to her original position and chose to call the police. When they came out of the police station, Yan Zhika stared at her and said, "Why are you still pleading for him?" Gu Shuang answered with trembling lips, I think I'm also in the wrong. You know it too." Yan Zhika seemed to have turned into Gu Shuang's mother. Some people can afford to play with while others can't. If you don't want to have a good relationship, don't provoke others. If Cheng wasn't here today, your parents would have burned incense for you. Kukuku, I was wrong. I repent. Gu Shuang raised 3 fingers and begged her with fear. "Stay with me tonight. I don't dare to be alone. My parents are not here, okay?" Yan Zhika turned to Lu Qing helplessly. "I suddenly regret saving her." Lu Qing sent a message to the girl and made a joke. "Don't worry. I won't fight with you for Kuku. I'm not afraid as long as you're in the same room with me." Gu Shuang forced a smile at Lu Qing. "Before that, let's eat first." They didn't even have time to enjoy the potted vegetables. "You still no hunger?" Yan Zhika stared at her again. Gu Shuang couldn't help but shrink her body. After everything was done, they entered the Gu villa. Yan Zhika and Lu Qing stayed in the guest room next to Gu Shuang's. "Sigh, only Song Li is normal among your best friends." Lu Qing hugged the girl and sighed. Shuang was hurt by a man and doesn't believe in relationships anymore. Yan Zhika explained again. "Don't date if you don't believe it," Lu Qing suggested. "But she seems to be eager to be in a relationship, but because she has no confidence in the future, she always chooses to break up when the relationship is at its strongest." Yan Zhika analyzed Gu Shuang's mentality. Lu Qing's mouth twitched. "This is an illness that needs to be treated." "Well, I'll kidnap her to see a psychiatrist these days." Yan Zhika actually agreed with Lu Qing's nonsense. On the other hand, Gu Shuang was writing in her diary with lingering fear. "I feel like I deserve it. I have to pay attention to my breakup strategy in the future. Well, I have to let the boy initiate the breakup. When the time comes, he'll become more and more stubborn, clingy, unreasonable every day. I don't believe any man can stand it." The next day she told her best friend her thoughts. Yan Zhika only asked one question, which made her speechless. "What if there really is someone who can stand it until you can't pretend anymore? Then I'll accept it?" After a long time, Gu Shuang answered blankly. This episode didn't affect Lu Qing. The round robin of the top 4 began as usual. Songqing University won 2 and lost 1. Once again they qualified for the national competition as the second place. Yan Zhika returned to America in mid-January to prepare for the upcoming new semester. Before they knew it, it was already the 19th of January. Chapter 518. Haidong Airport, Terminal T1. Carrying his backpack, Lu Qing saw the military representative for this trip to Japan at the designated spot. He didn't need to talk to the military representative because he knew him. He was a middle-aged man with deep eye sockets, dark fire in his eyes, and silver strands of hair. Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame. "Hello, Senior," greeted Lu Qing with a smile. Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame nodded slightly in response, maintaining his usual cold demeanor. With his experience of participating in the King of Youth League and traveling to and from America, Lu Qing didn't need anyone to guide him through the checkpoint. He boarded a Japanese Airlines plane with Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame. "Senior, the items inscribed with the wholeness formula have fallen into Dongying. Could it be the same for the confrontation formula, formation formula, and array formula? It might not be Japan. It could be Korea, Miluo, or even Lijiapa." Lu Qing recalled his conversation with Yan Zhika and took the initiative to mention this to Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame. Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame nodded slightly. "They have made similar speculations and even have some clues. We can't rule out the possibility that the item was sold to America." "He's indeed a professional. Whatever Ku and I can think of, they've already thought of it." Lu Qing smiled. "Then I'm relieved." At this moment, Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame looked ahead and threw out a sentence casually. Muko Yamashita's 7 Sins Hadu has a breakthrough in terms of killing intent. It's the killing intent that's getting stronger. Lu Qing tilted his head to look at his senior and tried to probe further. However, he realized that Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame had already closed his eyes, indicating that he didn't want to communicate. After a while, the plane rolled out and took off. As there was internet access in the cabin, Lu Qing turned on his phone and told Yanjika the information that Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame had just mentioned. It was noon in China and evening in America. Yanjika replied quickly. Hands crossed, chin in hand, deep in thought expression, she said, "This is a little different from our previous guess." According to her and Lu Cheng's initial guess, for a martial arts sect that worshipped extreme ideologies and emotions, places with spiritual symbols could stimulate a martial artist's potential and allow them to perform moves that they wouldn't normally be able to complete. Therefore, Muko Yamashita was likely to choose the highest dojo of the extreme Hadu sect or a shrine that symbolized a certain Japanese will. But from the looks of it, the opponent's home ground was unexpected. What kind of places do you think can increase the killing intent effectively? Lu Qing asked thoughtfully. Yanjika sent an emoji of rolling its eyes and said, "The source of hatred." Ancient battlefields left behind by massacres? Is it some remote shrine? I'm leaning towards the ancient battlefield. It's not hard to find in Japan. Lu Qing made his own guess. After discussing for a while, Yanjika gave him a pile of information about the extreme Hadu sect that involved killing intent. In the end, she changed the topic and talked about the ending of the previous incident. Because of Shuang's pleading and the ambiguity of the key testimony, the boy was determined to be provoking trouble, not attempted murder. At least she still has some conscience. Covering face and sighing expression, said Lu Qing. In the previous incident, the boy was guilty of going to extremes, but Gu Shuang also had to bear a large part of the responsibility. If she continued to be like this, sooner or later, something would happen, even if her father spent money to hire bodyguards for her. Yeah, she talked to the boy. I'm not sure what they talked about, but he didn't seem to be as angry as before. Yanjika replied, "Sometimes I want to study psychology and pull Shuang, Sister Jingjing and my brother back on the right track. Especially that brat. Every time I'm so angry that I want to cut ties with her, but I also feel that I shouldn't give up on her. Sai Qing, why do you think there are so many mentally ill people around me? Maybe it's to accumulate good karma?" Lu Qing couldn't explain this phenomenon. After chatting for more than half an hour, Yanjika said goodnight and fell into a deep sleep. Lu Qing buried his head in the information and the videos he downloaded in advance. He didn't neglect the battle at all. During this process, the Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame opened his eyes and glanced sideways. He seemed to be talking to himself and sighing. "You guys are so good now. Decades ago, it wasn't easy to get the details of the enemy. This is relative. The enemy knows us better too." Lu Qing replied casually. The Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame didn't say anything and closed his eyes again. Not long after, the plane began to descend and landed in Kansai, Osaka. The Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame took Lu Qing to a remote place after a few transfers and experienced the subway and Shinkansen. At this time, Lu Qing was already dizzy. In the afterglow of the setting sun, he saw the surrounding desolation. He saw an abandoned Buddhist temple in front of him. Its horizontal inscribed board was long gone. There were only scattered stones and wood inside. It was silent and gloomy. Even when the sunset shone in, it showed a dark red color. Lu Qing closed his eyes and formed the ice mirror. Suddenly he felt that the cold weather became even gloomier. The lake in his heart was filled with dark clouds and the smell of blood was faintly discernible. Ancient battlefield. He opened his eyes. Based on his previous speculation, he had a preliminary confirmation. The Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame nodded and didn't say anything. He walked slowly to the Buddhist temple that had the characteristics of the Warring States period. Lu Qing followed behind and carefully observed the surrounding situation. He could vaguely see that the abandoned Buddhist temple was originally used to suppress this ancient battlefield. There should be no lack of strange occurrences in this place in the past. He nodded thoughtfully. As they got closer to the Buddhist temple, he gradually saw the broken walls and Muko Yamashita standing at the entrance of the hall. Compared to August, his body shape didn't change much. He was still as tall and muscular as before. His arms were long and his muscles were very exaggerated. However, his face had a hair-raising difference. His thick and rough eyebrows were cut in the middle. The turning point was cut with a knife and an axe, sharp and fierce. Beside Muko Yamashita stood a skinny and short old man. He was wearing the dojo uniform of the extreme Hadu sect. He had a conical bamboo hat on his head and used the shadow to cover half of his face. His eyes were dark red. When he saw the old man, Lu Cheng's body tensed up. He felt like a sparrow being stared at by a venomous snake or a goat being guarded by a tiger. He felt that this was the entrance to hell, the source of the killing intent. Just a little bit of it was enough to make him stiffen. His ice mirror cracked and his calves and stomach twitched involuntarily. Is this the terrifying physical invulnerability expert of the extreme Hadu sect? While Lu Cheng was thinking, the divine enchanter of sin flame snorted. A dark red flame suddenly rose in the desolate area between him and the Buddhist temple. It spread with the wind and burned into the broken walls and ruins. Suddenly the killing intent and the flame disappeared. Everything returned to the desolation of dusk. 2 minutes later, Lu Cheng and the divine enchanter of sin flame stepped into the Buddhist temple and stood opposite Muko Yamashita. Without any communication, the divine enchanter of sin flame took out a painting with the word swordsman engraved on it. It was full of charm and had been passed down for a long time. It was obvious that it was the work of a physical invulnerability expert. The old man with the bamboo hat also took out a copy of the word Jia. The word Jia was thick and looked like it was expanding. Just by looking at it from afar, Lu Cheng could confirm that it was the real Jia formula. The divine enchanter of sin flame turned his head to look at him. After getting an affirmative answer, he and the old man with the bamboo hat threw out their items at the same time. They caught what they got and completed the exchange. Immediately after, they took a step back and changed their identities to that of referees. Muko Yamashita put on his headphones and took a step forward. His body made explosive sounds. Instead of expanding his muscles, he restrained them a little. He looked at Lu Cheng with his deep and cold eyes. Following the voice of the translator, he laughed in a strange and difficult Chinese language. Ever since I was defeated by you when you were weak, I have suffered great humiliation and pain. Because of this, I couldn't sleep every night. I felt like there was a flame burning my heart and tormenting my soul. However, it was this kind of torture that allowed me to find the most fundamental strength of my heart and soul. I understood the deeper meaning of the seven sins Hadouken and grasped the true essence of killing intent. I want to thank you and defeat you even more. As soon as Muko Yamashita finished his sentence, his eyes turned crimson red. A thick blood-colored fog rose from the surface of his body, awakening the undercurrent hidden in the surrounding desolation. Balls of ghostly green phosphorescence floated in the air. An exaggerated sense of bloodlust surged, almost creating a mirage-like effect. At this moment, Lu Cheng felt like he was in an ancient battlefield. He saw warriors being split into two, generals being beheaded and daimyos being pierced by spears. When they turned around, their faces were exactly the same as his own. The intense pain and fear of death instantly materialized and added to Lu Cheng's soul. It shook the ice mirror and set off waves. Muko Yamashita's mental pressure wasn't like the secret arts that only had a one-hit effect. It blended perfectly with the environment, continuous and influencing at all times. Using the geographical advantage and unknown arrangements, he actually had some physical invulnerability aura. Do you feel it? This is the beautiful killing intent, Muko Yamashita said with his eyes half closed. As soon as he finished his sentence, he suddenly opened his eyes wide and stared at Lu Cheng. He pulled off his headphones and threw them to the side along with the phone. He said in a deep voice, "I've said it before. I will defeat you with my own hands and wash away the humiliation." A ray of sunset light shone in, illuminating the temple hall behind him. It wasn't worshipping Buddha, but a blood-red Asura with 3 heads and 6 arms. P.S. Please recommend me. Chapter 519. Begin. The moment the sunset shone into the temple, 2 voices sounded at the same time. One in Chinese, the other in Japanese. With a bang, Muko Yamashita's burly and muscular body was magnified in Lu Cheng's eyes. That pair of sharp broken eyebrows were clearly visible. There was still a remnant of his figure at the entrance of the Buddhist hall that he was originally standing at. Along the way, the red fog dragged along. The stone slabs and messy obstacles on the ground were all split into 2. The cut was smooth and clean as if it was made by a divine weapon. Lu Cheng's scalp went numb and his hair stood on end. He was caught off guard by the enemy's flash attack. He couldn't dodge or retreat, nor did he have the time to use a simplified version of physical invulnerability or force concentration to block it. According to the videos he watched, even the experienced inhuman mighty one of the extreme Hadu sect wasn't at this level. Was it because of the uniqueness of his killing intent, or was it because of the environment? In the blink of an eye, the ice mirror rippled slightly. Lu Qing, who was resisting the invasion of fear, took control of his body and circulated his qi and blood to stimulate a few special parts, skipping the rest of the process. Simplified encountering gods in the void, fighting formula. Crack. He suddenly grew taller, and the cracks under his feet were like an earth dragon, spreading rapidly in all directions. At the same time, he shook his shoulders, and the muscles on his arms protruded with dark green veins. With a bang, he swung his elbow upwards, barely blocking Muko Yamashita's forearm, hammering with the momentum of flash. In that instant, the surrounding wind seemed to have stopped. The moving sunset seemed to have solidified. Even the desolation, pain, and killing intent dimmed. Only a pair of small fists with bulging muscles became the core of heaven and earth. One was greenish-black, the other was crimson. Both were slightly deformed, and the feeling of power and destruction was overwhelming. Boom. The pure collision of flesh created a sound like a bomb exploding. Lu Qing's arm rebounded and his body leaned back. He took 3 steps back, each step leaving a clear mark. Even though he had used a simplified version of the fighting formula, he was still at a disadvantage against his enemy's flash strike. He couldn't neutralize that terrifying force. Muko Yamashita swayed on the spot. He wasn't in a hurry to follow up with a combo attack. Instead, he quickly turned the red mist into red light. Wrapped in a thick murderous aura, he threw a punch forward, dragging a terrifying giant scythe behind him as he ruthlessly slashed at his opponent. As the scarlet light spread, a sinister wind swirled behind Lu Qing, twisting into a headless black figure clad in chainmail and wielding sabers in both hands. It was blurry and unreal. With its head hanging on its chest, it raised its tachi above its head and made a slash facing the wind, forming a pincer attack with Muko Yamashita. All of this was silent and breathless. It was as if there was a chill hidden in the north wind that even the dance stage expert's absolute reaction couldn't detect. Who would have thought that Muko Yamashita, who used the 7 Sins Hadouken, would be able to summon a helper? Lu Qing's senses were sensitive. His ice mirror reflected his surroundings and only saw the buzzing behind him. There was an abnormality in the magnetic field. He immediately raised his guard and redirected his qi and blood to his lower abdomen, stopping his retreat in time. He sat firmly on the golden chariot, grasping the distance perfectly. After a short moment, his dance stage erupted. His legs swelled and he took advantage of the momentum to jump half a step forward. Lowering his waist and abdomen, he swung his left fist. Wearing the heavy Emperor Yen glove, he struck the blood-colored scythe head-on. Boom. Clouds of crimson mist splattered, all ignited by flames. It was a spectacular sight to see a rain of fire, devouring and eliminating the sinister and evil aura nearby. The tachi of the headless general behind Lu Qing was only a few grains away from hitting his opponent. It was so stimulating that Lu Qing's back broke out in goosebumps. The blurry black shadow helper seemed to be imprisoned on the spot and couldn't move forward. The strike missed and dissipated indifferently. At this moment, Muko Yamashita's body swayed again. A small portion of the crimson light was ignited by the explosion. Apart from Lu Qing's fist and right arm, the area around his skin was filled with a bloody mist. It was corroding his pores, cold and gloomy, trying to enter and absorb his qi and blood. Just as he was about to activate Emperor Yen force to disperse the bloody mist of murderous intent, Muko Yamashita had already squatted sideways. Lowering his shoulders, he raised his left fist and rushed towards the sky like a burning rocket, fast and urgent. Lu Qing straightened his back and leaned back slightly in an instant. He felt the strong wind from his opponent's fist brushing past his face, stinging like a knife. Following which, like a spring, he straightened his back and returned to his original position. Taking advantage of the momentum, he punched towards Muko Yamashita's waist, not giving his opponent a chance to change his moves. At this critical juncture, Muko Yamashita's eyes were bloodshot and cold as usual. Following the upward rush of the fist, he jumped up, swayed his waist and bent his knee to the side. With a bang he blocked Lu Qing's crushing punch. Using the momentum, he spun around and swept his leg horizontally, creating a blood-red tornado. One kick after another, going back and forth continuously, with endless ferocity. Bam bam bam. Lu Qing's ice mirror reflected. Raising both arms, he kept blocking in front of him. Amidst the crisp sounds of his joints being pulled back, he defended steadily and retreated in an orderly manner. However, during this process, he was slightly alarmed to feel that his body's function seemed to be eroded by the bloody mist of murderous intent. It started to deteriorate slowly, but he couldn't free his hands to perform force concentration to dispel the effects. Muko Yamashita's murderous version of Seven Sins Hadouken blended perfectly with the special environment. If this goes on, I'll be in danger today, Lu Qing suddenly realized. He tried to interrupt his opponent's rhythm and find a chance to catch his breath. However, Muko Yamashita, who had fallen into the murderous intent, connected his moves tightly. His attack power was terrifying. He was as crazy as an evil spirit, as bloodthirsty as an Azura. When the blood whirlwind was about to end, he immediately swung his arms and threw out a ball of crimson red, playing a remote duel with Lu Qing. You're a Hadouken, I'm a fireball. You're a blood ball, I'm a ray of cold light. Compared to August, Muko Yamashita's Hadouken was already at his fingertips. He could perform it as he wished as long as his posture wasn't awkward. After catching his breath, he once again overlapped with the three-headed, six-armed, crimson Azura statue in the temple hall behind him. Once again he left behind a trail of afterimages and crimson fog. Flash appeared near Lu Qing. He repeated the process from before, as if he wanted to use this crazy attack and the corrosive effect of the blood fog of murderous intent to completely defeat his opponent. His pair of dark red eyes were filled with a cold and satisfying murderous intent. He looked at his opponent, who was struggling to hold on as if he was looking at a dish on a plate, waiting to be cut up and put into his mouth. In less than 2 rounds, the decline in Lu Qing's bodily functions had started to become apparent. Without hesitation, he made a prompt decision to circulate his qi and blood to stimulate his body. Bam! Lu Qing seemed to have returned to his peak in an instant. His muscles stretched his trousers and expanded his clothes. His fist, which had slowed down by half a beat, exploded with terrifying speed. Like a shooting arrow, it arrived first even though it was launched later. It blocked his opponent's fist, which was covered in crimson light, in front of his lower abdomen. Boom! The sound of the collision of strength and explosion destroyed the desolation around the temple. Muko Yamashita, whose murderous intent had reached its peak, and Lu Qing shook at the same time. They were evenly matched, and the latter was no longer in his passive state. Is it time to go all out? Joy flashed in Muko Yamashita's eyes. The crimson light around his body grew brighter and thicker. He took a step forward and used his right palm as a knife, chopping down diagonally. It was as if there was the accompaniment of thunder. Lu Qing's will was like a raging fire, and his heart was like an ice mirror. He calmly circulated his qi and blood once again, stimulating the corresponding parts of his body. He saw that they were slightly injured and a small amount of blood was oozing out. Simplified fighting formula, double explosion. Seeing God in the void, suppressing others with higher realms. Bam! His left fist shot out like lightning, and like a cannonball, it pierced through the air barrier and blasted towards the palm knife. His entire arm was thicker than before, as if it came from a giant. Amidst the muffled sound, the crimson light scattered. Muko Yamashita quickly retracted his palm, and his body swayed backward. Lu Qing, on the other hand, remained steady. He controlled his body to repair the internal damage, and at the same time, circulated his qi and blood to stimulate the corresponding parts. He showed no mercy. Bam! 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 Lu Qing was like a god, coldly observing the minute details of his body. He constantly stimulated the hidden parts of his body without reaching the limit, causing the damage that he could bear to a certain extent. Once, twice, thrice. His arms swung continuously, and his fists bombarded continuously, one from the left, one from the right. Every move was heavy and could split mountains. He beat Muko Yamashita until he was in a weakened state. The crimson light scattered, and his arms were trembling. He didn't expect his opponent's explosive secret technique to last so long. Boom! A few of the capillaries in Lu Qing's eyes were broken, and his vision was filled with crimson. He turned his waist, twisted his knees, and swung his right arm fiercely. He forcefully pulled out an explosion from Muko Yamashita's blocking fist, and sent his opponent retreating. Since the start of the battle, this was the first time he had turned the tables. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Qing lowered his waist, and circulated his qi and blood, reducing the negative effects caused by the explosion of the fighting formula. He stopped his body from collapsing. Even so, if he were to stimulate his qi and blood like before 2 more times, he wouldn't be able to bear it. Bam! His Dan qi gushed out. Lu Qing was like an eagle and pounced in front of Muko Yamashita. He raised his arm and punched downwards. Flames were ignited, and the crimson light was ignited, exploding in the silent abandoned Buddhist temple. Muko Yamashita let out a low roar, condensed the crimson light and punched without backing down. Bam! Loud noises were heard and the dark clouds shook. Lu Qing quickly and naturally connected the explosion of the dance stage. One punch was heavy and the other was explosive. They were both Emperor Yen to restrain the evil. Double explosion, triple explosion, quadruple explosion. 10th explosion, 20th explosion, 30th explosion. Lu Qing's face was calm, like a robot from the next century. He followed up with precise footsteps and spread his arms. Each punch was heavier than the previous one, and each kick was fiercer than the previous one. He caused flames to rise continuously in the desolate wilderness, and smoke to rise. Muko Yamashita kept retreating, crushing the stone slabs and breaking the broken walls. This caused the Buddhist temple to shake continuously and dust to fall. It looked like it was about to collapse. During this process he clearly felt that Muko Yamashita's body was weaker than before. In other words, the breakthrough of the enemy's murderous intent and the bearing of the home ground environment had created negative effects in other parts of his body, causing him to be stronger in offense than defense. He could only attack crazily, and once he fell into a passive position the problem would be exposed. Bam! Lu Qing turned sideways and punched, repelling the enemy and creating an expanding fireball. Muko Yamashita retreated backwards, and unavoidably crashed into the Asura statue in the Buddhist temple. The statue fell to the ground and its limbs were broken. At this moment Muko Yamashita suddenly paused, looked up at the sky, and let out a roar full of murderous intent. He ignored Lu Qing's bombardment punch that was approaching him. The surrounding light suddenly dimmed. P.S. Today's writing speed has hit a new low. Only 3,000 words in 4 hours. Normally it would be 6,000 words. The plot has been thought out long ago. I'll update what I've written first, and try to get the second update before 11 p.m. I'll continue writing after I finish my meal. Chapter 520. Following that furious roar filled with murderous intent, the pain and fear that had been affecting and suppressing Lu Qing's ice mirror suddenly rolled in and dissipated. The surrounding light dimmed eerily, as though dark clouds had risen from the ground. Gusts of chilly wind blew. The wind howled and condensed, pouring into Muko Yamashita's body in an instant. An exaggerated repulsive force expanded outwards, forming an invisible barrier. Boom! Lu Qing's punch landed. Red and white flames rolled out, dispersing the invisible force field. However, this was only half done. The further his fist moved, the slower its speed became. It was as though he had fallen into an invisible swamp. In the end, he couldn't move an inch, suspending half a foot in front of his opponent's abdomen. Everything seemed to have frozen. Once the force field was retracted, the magnetic field behind Muko Yamashita distorted, revealing a blurry black shadow that was holding a blade with both hands and hanging in front of its chest. Its body was burning with blood-red fog. It took a step forward and truly overlapped with Muko Yamashita, no longer distinguishable. The dark and gloomy Buddhist temple and the desolate wilderness suddenly brightened up, bearing the fiery glow of the sunset. Some parts were flowing with gold while others were dazzling red. The red glow didn't just come from the horizon, it also came from Muko Yamashita. He was like a general soaked in blood, locking his gaze on Lu Qing. At this moment, Lu Qing suddenly felt a sense of danger. It was as if he was facing an existence that could seriously injure him. From the electric current in his tailbone caused by the absolute reaction, to the clear and accurate reflection and judgment of the ice mirror, to his supernatural ability to foresee the future in a short period of time, all of them were clamoring for him to dodge quickly and avoid the sharp edge. He didn't want to face the terrifying attack head-on, so that his body wouldn't be damaged. Muko Yamashita's attack that was about to explode was definitely stronger than the sure kill Seven Sins Hadouken. It was a killer move that he had to use a special environment and preemptive preparation to complete. And it could only be used once. Lu Qing's body jerked instinctively. His muscles and fascia were accumulating strength, ready to spring out. This allowed him to leap 10 to 20 meters, causing his opponent's ultimate attack to miss and truly turn the tables. But at this time, a few incoherent thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. This should be the extreme Hadu sect, which was similar to the Shura kill of the physical invulnerability experts. After the attack was launched, the speed would increase, and the power would increase with the accumulation of kinetic energy until it exceeded the effective range. With Mukko Yamashita's current level, even if he had a breakthrough in his wave of killing intent, even if he had other support, he wouldn't be able to unleash the full potential of this move. He had just taken 30 blows of Emperor Yen force combined with the eruption of his Dan Qi. Even if his killing intent could eliminate, neutralize, and defend against most of the explosive impact, the accumulated injuries would not be light. His body's endurance had decreased. His offense was strong, but his defense was weak. If I were to fall back into the previous situation, I wouldn't be able to use the encountering gods in the void self-reflection to consecutively unleash the simplified fighting formula to turn the tables. At that time, his bodily functions would be eroded by the killing intent, and the outcome would be irreversible. In a split second, Lu Qing didn't think too much about it. He didn't hesitate and made a decision in an instant. He trusted his own knowledge, vision, and experience. He didn't blindly follow absolute reaction, ice mirror, and supernatural ability. Bam! He suddenly pushed his feet inward, shaking the foundation of the Buddhist hall a little. In his mind, he had already visualized the heavy, scorching Emperor Yen with a simple crown. The fire force in his body accumulated layer by layer, continuously compressing and condensing into a small ball, blazing white and returning to blue. As the fire force that had undergone mutation at the inhuman stage was heavier, purer, and more condensed, the process was relatively fast and didn't take much effort. Following which, the god of fire, Zhurong, who had the head of a beast and the body of a human, stepped through the void, controlling the highly condensed ball of fire and preventing it from exploding. The red fog around Mukko Yamashita, as thick as blood, emitted a bright red light, enveloping him completely. As his fist charged forward, it slashed out with a swoosh. It was like a giant scythe from the sea of blood, hell, or the Grim Reaper. Compared to the Seven Sins Hadu fist, this strike was much sharper and filled with murderous intent, as though it could cut everything in its path into two. Seven Sins Hadu fist's killing intent, Azura kill. As soon as the bloody light appeared, Lu Qing completed the seemingly complicated but smooth movements of twisting his ankles, twisting his knees, twisting his hips, wrapping his waist, and other movements. He swung his arms, holding a faint blazing white light in his hands. His fist fell from the sky, heavy, strong, and ferocious. Emperor Yen Force Internal Explosion Fist. Boom. Before the bloody light could accelerate, it was hit by Lu Cheng's fist. Force was injected into it, producing an exaggerated deafening sound. If it wasn't for the cold winter, a flock of frightened crows would have leaped from the roof of the abandoned Buddhist temple. Animals within a certain range of the desolate wilderness would have fled in panic. Boom. Explosions sounded continuously and the bloody light shone brightly. Lu Qing felt a chill seeping into his body. His muscles stiffened and he was thrown out by the force like a violent storm. He heard many tiny parts of his body shattering and saw multiple internal injuries. The power of one blow was shocking. His consciousness looked down from above, like a deity looking at his body. Lu Qing controlled the details and controlled his injuries while avoiding them. He switched to a way of exerting force with the least negative effect. He adjusted his center of gravity, bounced in midair and landed steadily. Other than his face being slightly paler than before, his shoes and clothes torn, he didn't show any signs of injury. Mukko Yamashita, at the entrance of the Buddhist temple, was trembling slightly. There was even some blood seeping out from the corners of his mouth, eyes, and nose. His accumulated injuries were completely triggered by the internal explosion. Lu Qing believed that his injuries were more serious than his. However, due to their different levels of control over their bodies, it looked like the difference between heaven and earth. At this moment, his eyelids twitched. Mukko Yamashita's figure was reflected in his pupils. He raised his hands and was about to form a seal. Wholeness formula. He had to recover his stamina and spirit, suppress his injuries and seek the final victory. Lu Qing focused his mind and circulated his qi and blood. Relying on his precise control over his body, he simplified the process of the army formula. He didn't use any seals but only released his aura. He shouted the ancient sound before Mukko Yamashita finished. Army. The temple suddenly darkened. The murderous aura of the army from the ancient battlefield was triggered. In an instant, it turned into shadows and pounced on Mukko Yamashita along with Lu Cheng's spirit. Previously on the plain, when he predicted that they might encounter an ancient battlefield, he had already considered whether the power, effect, and distance of the army formula would be enhanced as a result. The answer was yes. At this moment, Muko Yamashita's body turned cold. He felt that his limbs and head were entangled by the army spirit that had died tragically. He couldn't break free. He saw Itachi slashing horizontally about to land on his neck. The scene of his head flying up and blood spurting out was playing out. No! He cried out in fear. The preparation of the wholeness formula was in vain. At this moment, Lu Qing had already gathered his qi and blood, spirit and force in his lower abdomen, using this to dispel and suppress most of the negative effects. Then when his Dan Qi exploded, he planned the path of exertion that would have the least impact on his injuries. With a push of his legs, he pounced in front of Muko Yamashita. He swung his left fist sideways, bringing along blazing flames that were close to white. He delivered a ferocious swing punch. This was the boxing technique of the Jiruga sect. Using it here would put the least burden on the body and was also the most suitable for the situation. Bam! Muko Yamashita pulled his arm and raised it to parry in time. However, his body was blown up by the explosion of Emperor Yen force. The blood mist became thinner, and the spreading flames seemed to stick to the red glow on the surface of his body, absorbing nutrients and burning continuously. Lu Cheng's eyes were clear and sparkling, as though there were two mirrors made of ice, reflecting his opponent completely without any emotion. Bam! He gathered his qi and blood and swung his right fist again. The flames were heavy and it was a half-step punch. When Muko Yamashita managed to parry, he took a step forward, bent his right elbow and smashed it down ferociously. Bam 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 bam. After a series of moves, Lu Qing suddenly turned forward and swung his left arm backward. Like a burning steel whip, he whipped it viciously between Muko Yamashita's raised arms, causing his shoulders to tremble and he staggered backwards. With a sliding step, Lu Cheng's right fist rushed forward. It was so fast that it looked like it was about to fly, leaving his opponent with no choice but to parry in haste. This time there was no explosion, no burning. A cold, chilling sensation invaded Muko Yamashita's body, causing him to shiver. Much of his boiling murderous intent and bloodlust faded away, and his mind became clear. Once the extreme emotions of his opponent weakened, Lu Qing immediately spread his arms apart and started attacking from both sides. Bam 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 bam. The friction created red flames, causing Muko Yamashita to be completely flustered. After fighting for a while, his storm-like combination of punches suddenly stopped. He turned his waist and back quickly and whipped his leg horizontally. Bam! His leg landed on Muko Yamashita's palms, which he could only block hastily, and bounced them back, crashing into his body. Bam! Muko Yamashita was sent flying, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard from his body. He spat out a mouthful of uncontrollable blood, and his eyes were filled with confusion. Lu Qing straightened his back and was about to pounce again, but the skinny old man wearing the bamboo hat had somehow blocked in front of Muko Yamashita, announcing the end of the match. The winner was self-evident. Lu Qing won. Muko Yamashita fell to the ground. He saw Lu Qing, who was a few steps away, calmly saluting him with his usual expression. He turned around as if he wasn't affected by the battle, and slowly walked away barefooted. This scene made Muko Yamashita's heart sink deeper and deeper. He could no longer see the light of day and no hope. I used everything I had and borrowed external strength, but I was still no match for him. And he seemed to be having it easy. Leaving the Buddhist temple, Lu Qing walked for a while in the desolate wilderness. After confirming that his figure was no longer within the range of Muko Yamashita and the old man wearing the bamboo hat, he let out a sigh of relief and slowed down his precise control of his body. After relaxing, his footsteps suddenly became weak and he almost fell. "Senior, please pass me my phone." Lu Qing blushed and looked at the divine enchanter of Sin Flame who was walking silently beside him. "P.S. Please recommend me." Chapter 521. Inherited from the same lineage. The divine enchanter of Sin Flame finally spoke, giving a brief evaluation of Lu Cheng's previous performance. Lu Qing could only reply with a dry laugh. He silently took the phone and sent a message to Yenjika. "Done. Just as we expected, it's really an ancient battlefield. I'll be able to teach you the wholeness formula in the new year." In Connecticut, America, the night was dark and silent. Yenjika's room suddenly rang with an exaggerated message notification. She opened her eyes in a daze and picked up the phone. Faint dimples immediately appeared on her cheeks. She forced herself to reply with a blushing and smiling emoji and adjusted the settings so as not to disturb her rest. After doing all this, she fell down and turned around. Hugging a small part of the quilt, she fell asleep sweetly. The corners of her mouth seemed to be curled up, as if she was having a pleasant dream. Lu Qing smiled when he saw the reply. He put away his phone, grabbed his backpack and found a pair of casual running shoes. He picked up a woolen shirt and put them on slowly. Other than his trousers, which were a little torn, there was no trace of a battle on his body. In public, with a senior expert around, he still had some sense of shame and didn't take off his pants on the spot. He could still wear them anyway. Putting on a down jacket and carrying his backpack, Lu Qing controlled the healing of his internal injuries and slowly walked forward using only his legs. Just then, the divine enchanter of Sin Flame passed the rubbing of the wholeness formula to him and said in a hoarse voice, "Return it to me when you return to China." According to the boastful words of Shi Jianghu, his disciple could master any of the 9 words formulas in minutes and leave him far behind. Sure. Lu Qing didn't find it difficult and accepted the rubbing without hesitation. Along the way, he didn't cultivate directly because he couldn't be distracted. He only carefully observed the ancient shape of the wholeness formula and the essence it contained to get a feel for it. After checking into the hotel that night, he finally had some free time. He sat cross-legged on the bed and placed the rubbings in front of him. He closed his eyes and sketched out the ancient characters while chanting. It was similar to the process of cultivating the 9 words formula in the past. His Jindan was triggered, leading to vibrations and ripples. It was resplendent and took shape, engraving the charm of the wholeness formula into his mind. But this time it didn't change. Only the corresponding fragment appeared as usual. Jia. Lu Cheng's deep voice reverberated in the room. It seemed to contain a sense of lofty mystery. He was changing his hand seals to test the internal training effects of the wholeness formula. After a while, he opened his eyes and nodded slightly. He already had a grasp of the situation. The normal use of the wholeness formula stimulated the corresponding parts of the body, causing the secretion of hormones, invigorating the mind and rejuvenating the body. It was similar to stabbing the thigh with a knife, using the excruciating pain in exchange for the activation of the body's protective mechanism. It cleared the mind instantly and filled the body with strength. Of course, compared to the crude method of stabbing the thigh, it was more technical. The stimulation was more targeted and the effects were better and more obvious. It lived up to its name as a secret art. I can only use it once a day. Even with the simplified version of self-reflection, I can only use it 3 times at most. And if I reach the limit, I'll feel weak and won't be able to get good feedback for a long time. The mental and physical strength I recover with the wholeness formula will decrease more easily than usual. Lu Qing seriously pondered the characteristics of the secret art. When used for internal training, it'll shake the body and indirectly affect the brain. It'll allow the body to recover faster and faster as time goes by. The effects of deep sleep will also improve. In other words, I'll need 6 to 7 hours of rest before I fully master the wholeness formula. 4 hours will be enough or even less. Lu Qing couldn't help but feel disappointed at the thought. Just a few years ago, his favorite leisure activity was still sleeping in. Everyone said that it was a waste to sleep in during the holidays. He had always thought that it was a waste not to sleep in during the holidays. But after he started practicing martial arts, he bid farewell to sleeping in. He no longer enjoyed it. Now, it seemed that his afternoon naps could be shortened to half an hour, and his sleep time at night could be reduced by a third or even more. So this is good too. I feel like I'm living longer than others and can do more things. Lu Cheng's thoughts wandered. For some reason, he suddenly thought of Ku's shameful and angry scolding. Hooligan. He coughed lightly and stopped his thoughts. With a smile, he picked up his phone and shared the effects and characteristics of the wholeness formula with Yenjika. In the end, he said righteously, "This way you can learn more easily." Yes. Yenjika nodded happily. The next morning after training, Lu Qing met up with the divine enchanter of Sin Flame and handed him the rubbing. "Senior, I'm done." The divine enchanter of Sin Flame looked at him for a full 5 seconds before reaching out and taking the rubbing. Lu Qing handed over the task and felt relieved. He was more hopeful about the future. In a little over a year, he had collected 6 words of the 9 words formula, which was 2/3 complete. There were still a few years to go before Master's old injuries completely relapsed and his body collapsed. There was still a lot of hope. Why am I thinking about the good instead of the bad? Maybe I don't need to collect all the 9 words formulas and master's old injuries will be healed because of the advancement of technology and martial arts. Judging from the situation of the Jindan, one of the remaining 9 words formulas should be used for healing. They didn't talk on the way. In the afternoon, they arrived at Haidong Airport and went their separate ways. Lu Qing didn't rush home. Instead he took the high-speed rail to Wuxia Mozhang. He planned to pay his respects to master and burn incense at the sect. He wouldn't come back on the first day of the new year. In Shi Yuejian's villa, Geezer Shi held an exquisite wine pot engraved with the word fighting. He looked at his disciple and clicked his tongue. That old geezer Sin Flame said you have a solid foundation and a lot of experience. Senior, you flatter me, Lu Qing said humbly. That old geezer doesn't usually praise people. Geezer Shi waved his hand, happy that his reputation had increased. To be able to defeat an opponent of the same level who had comprehended the killing intent in an environment set up by the opponent in advance, you didn't disgrace this old man. He paused for a moment and said, your ice mirror has reached the level of encountering gods in the void self-reflection. If you want to go further in the inhuman stage, it's almost impossible. How about this? Tomorrow when we go to the sect, I'll give you 3 days to study the physical invulnerability chapters of the ice sect. How much you can comprehend will depend on yourself. Study the physical invulnerability chapters of the ice sect? Lu Qing was shocked at first, but then he was overjoyed. Before attaining the external connection with heaven and earth, it was impossible to master the 9 unique arts. However, it was still possible to comprehend something from them and draw parallels. Didn't Peng Liyun imitate and create 2 martial arts by referencing 9 heavens ensemble, and thunder from a clear sky, cloudless thunder blade? Although they weren't simplified physical invulnerability, they were still quite extraordinary. Moreover, they were faster and more suitable for the user. In Peng Liyun's hands, they weren't much worse than Thunder Seal or Fiery Thunderbolt. Did Master acknowledge my accumulation and experience? Thank you, Master. Lu Qing blurted out. Geezer Shi glared at him and said, why don't I see you thanking me usually? Master, I keep my gratitude in my heart. I only express 1/10 of it. Lu Qing had learned a lot from Talker, so he tried to diffuse the situation with a smile. The next morning in the Songtao Pavilion of the Ice God sect, Lu Qing sat on the balcony, his eyes reflecting the pine forest and green sea. However, a clear image of his body appeared in his mind. His flesh wriggled and stopped the wounds, healing them quickly one by one. After an unknown period of time, he felt that the internal injuries from the battle with Muko Yamashita were at least half healed under the effects of the pills and self-reflection. I'll be fully healed in 2 or 3 days. Lu Qing exhaled. His ears twitched as he heard deliberately light and silent footsteps approaching. He stood up slowly, withdrew his aura and walked slowly to the door. After waiting for a dozen seconds, there was a sudden knock on the door. Lu Qing reached out and pulled open the door. Mo Jingting's curled fingers froze in midair as though she was shocked. Hello, Junior Martial Uncle. She quickly regained her senses. Her misty eyes, which seemed to lack focus, were filled with smiles. Sect leader Martial Uncle is looking for me? Lu Qing went straight to the point. Yeah, he's waiting for you at the Ice Queen Pavilion. Mo Jingting looked at the increasingly unfathomable little Martial Uncle and added with a smile. He wants to bring you to the restricted area of the sect to observe the unique physical invulnerability moves. Alright, sorry to trouble you. Lu Qing smiled courteously, walked out of the room, closed the door, and walked along the corridor towards the Ice Queen Pavilion. Mo Jingting followed behind, looking at his back as he lowered his head and typed on his phone. She suddenly felt a little envious and emotional. Little Martial Uncle is really becoming more and more like an expert, except when he's playing on his phone. Why didn't Martial Granduncle bring him back to the sect earlier? At the Ice Queen Pavilion, sect leader He stood near the entrance. He smiled at Lu Qing and said, You've really made us wrong again and again. This old man originally thought that you would only be able to observe next year. Thank you for the compliment, sect leader Martial Uncle. Lu Qing bowed, a little embarrassed. Let's go. He turned around and led Lu Qing to the basement level. As they walked, he explained, Don't be greedy. You're still at the inhuman stage, so it's enough to focus on 2 or 3 moves when you observe. Otherwise, it'll take up too much energy and you won't be able to learn anything. You've made some progress in Ice Mirror, so the most suitable move for you is the 5th move, Enemy Heart Freezing move. Also, the 6th move, Ice Spirit Holy Light, and the 1st move, Eternal Ice Wall, are more suitable for you. According to your master, the 9th move, Vast Starry Sky, Absolute Frost, is closer to your understanding. It's a pity that this move has long been lost due to the chaos of war. Even with the alliance of several sects, they could only come up with a weakened version. I hope that one day you'll be able to innovate and perfect it and even surpass the past. Lu Qing listened attentively as he followed sect leader Martial Uncle through a long corridor and 3 thick heavy metal doors. Amidst the illusion that this place was very technologically advanced, they entered a hall that was shimmering with silvery white light. Before he could observe his surroundings, even with his strength and realm, he couldn't help but shiver. So cold. P.S. Today is the death anniversary of the Elder. I originally planned to write 3 chapters yesterday to free up some time in the afternoon. However, my typing speed wasn't ideal yesterday, so I didn't succeed. Facepalm. Chapter 522. The entire hall was covered in a cold silver color, as though it was made of special metal. Here it was filled with whistling cold winds, falling goose feathers, and sparkling crystals. It was so cold that it was like a place of 2 extremes. Yes, in the middle of the mountain where it was isolated from the outside world, there was a terrifying snowstorm raging, as though it wanted to bury all living things. Lu Qing subconsciously circulated his flame force to warm his body. Looking around, he realized that the source of the snowstorm came from 9 paintings hanging in different positions. They were made of special materials like cloth or silk and had different charms. Some were dark and cold, some were covered in snow and wind, some were crystal clear and some were white. Together, they formed an illusory world of ice and snow. With so many objects with charms placed together, it was easy to attract and influence the outside world, forming a cycle. It was different from taking them out individually, where one could only sense them by touching them. Lu Qing nodded thoughtfully, his gaze sweeping the other places. At the corresponding positions of the 9 paintings, there was a stone platform on which different items were placed. Some were golden pages, some were crystal items, some were plain, and some were full of charm. The 9 stone platforms were like stars, surrounding a transparent cabinet in the center. Inside the cabinet was the ice essence bead, which seemed to be condensed by blue light. It was also the source of the unusual scene in this place. Different paintings correspond to different visualizations of different unique arts. The stone platforms below them have written descriptions of the practice, explanations of the moves, and the charms left behind by previous generations of physical invulnerability grandmasters. You can combine them and comprehend them. Don't blindly follow the visualizations. It's better to not have books than books. Martial arts are improved over time. He gave a brief explanation and smiled. Stay here for 3 hours every day. Don't force yourself. Don't think that you can withstand the harsh environment here just because you have Emperor Yen force. Be careful of the cold charms seeping into your bones. You may get arthritis for no reason, and it will affect your progress to physical invulnerability. Thank you for your advice, sect leader. I understand. I'll stay here from 1:30 to 4:30 every day. Lu Qing knew what was good for him and bowed sincerely. Good. Comprehension is up to you. I'll take my leave first. That's the enemy heart freezing move. The ice mirror is a simplified version of it. That's the ice spirit holy light, the ancestor of the ice burning. It comes with a set of saber and sword techniques. You can take a look and try to understand it. Even if you don't learn how to use weapons, you can still integrate it into your fists and legs. That's the eternal ice wall, a purely defensive martial art. But you youngsters have a broader mind, maybe you can come up with other uses. That's the boundless starry sky, one of the 2 killing moves of the ice sect. Since the thunder, fire, battle, and plague of the 5 sects of Taoism had condensed the physical invulnerability-related techniques into 9, many of the later generations imitated and categorized them. The 1st to 7th forms were physical invulnerability techniques with different effects, while the 8th and 9th forms were the most powerful killer moves. They were named differently to differentiate them. For example, the 8th form of the Thunder sect, Thunder from a Clear Sky, Cloudless Thunder Blade; the 9th form of the Fire sect, 9 Rotations of 5 Flames, Descent of the Sun; the 9th form of the Fighting sect, Wrath of the Dumu, Heavenly Punishment of the Star Palace; the 8th form of the Plague sect, Demons and Monsters, Road to the Underworld; and the 9th form of the Dark sect, Dark Devouring the Sun, Descent of the Eternal Night. The 8th and 9th forms of the Ice Spirit Holy Kung Fu, also known as the Ice sect's secret art, were Frozen Heaven and Earth, Eternally Unchanging, and Boundless Starry Sky, Absolute Frost, respectively. After giving the instructions, he didn't waste any more of Lu Cheng's time. He slowly walked out of the place and closed the heavy door, isolating the inside from the outside world. Lu Qing weighed the pros and cons before striding towards the location of the enemy heart-freezing move. The ice mirror had already become the core of his martial arts. It would be best if he could understand and improve upon it. The painting seemed to be carved with a mirror made of ice crystals, but if one looked closely, they would find that it seemed to be more like a transparent heart with all 7 orifices. As the cold fog around it shrank and expanded, it seemed to come alive and was beating. Lu Qing tried to understand it directly but to no avail. Then he flipped through the text descriptions, diagrams, secret manuals, notes left behind by the predecessors, and the insights left behind by the ancestral masters. He went through them one by one, seriously and attentively. When he had a grasp of the overall situation and had a certain level of understanding, he walked back to the front of the visualization diagram. Once again he entered meditation and tried to comprehend it calmly. 3 hours passed quickly. Lu Qing woke up from the cold with his flame force circulating naturally. His body was shivering uncontrollably. It's been a long time since I had this feeling. No wonder Master only gave me 3 days. Otherwise, even if I only came here for 3 hours a day, I wouldn't be able to take it. I would have to wait for at least 10 days to half a month before I can enter this place again. Lu Qing transformed his flame force into Emperor Yen and stopped shivering. He waited patiently for He to open the door as though nothing had happened. As for the enemy heart-freezing move, he didn't understand much due to his low realm. He only vaguely understood that not only could it be used to control one's body, but it was also the nemesis of negative emotions. It could also be used to connect with the outside world. Within a certain range, one could see the enemy's emotions and changes in their muscles. In other words, the god, who looked down on him, could also see his opponent. Based on this, Lu Qing had a preliminary idea of how to train after the ice mirror. On the second day he comprehended the ice spirit holy light. This was a unique skill that strengthened the ice spirit force. It could be released without dissipating, and it could be condensed into blades and swords. It was a set of moves and techniques. Lu Qing couldn't understand the essence of the technique, so he couldn't increase his force. However, with the support of encountering gods in the void, self-reflection, he could barely be considered a beginner. As for the bladesmanship and swordsmanship, he studied them seriously for quite some time. Combined with the notes of predecessors, he gained some insight into the simple changes. On the 3rd day he found a possible way to improve his ice armor from the compression and thickening of the Millennium Ice Wall. As this was a purely defensive technique, there weren't many details related to it. There was still an hour and a half before his comprehension came to an end. Since he had nothing to do, he walked to the incomplete version of the vast starry sky, absolute frost. Its background was dark, dotted with dozens of tiny, distant stars. The contrast between the two made the silence and coldness of the starry sky even more apparent. It was as though all heat no longer existed, and all civilizations had turned into tombs. Taking a closer look, Lu Qing found that there seemed to be another palm in the visualization diagram. It was a palm that encompassed the darkness and brought about eternal silence. It seemed both real and illusory, making it hard to grasp. After comprehending for a while, he still didn't gain anything. Lu Qing tried to taste it from another angle. Let's not talk about that palm for now. How do I create the absolute frost of the vast starry sky? In the vast universe, the temperature will naturally drop to a terrifying level in places far away from the stars. There's no need for other procedures. Imitating the martial arts of the stars, don't tell me I have to completely isolate the radiation of the sun or the spread of heat. Lu Qing thought aimlessly. He shivered as he activated the ice spirit force in an experimental manner. First, he used the principle of heat insulation to stack his force, leaving a gap in the outer layer to block the heat and increase the temperature of the core. However, he failed miserably. Following that, he expanded his force in an attempt to lower the temperature, but he still failed. Again and again, Lu Qing's fire could only last for less than a minute. Just like his previous attempts, he always failed. Seeing that there were still more than 10 minutes left, he gave up and stared at the visualization diagram again. The more he looked at it, the more he felt that it was very similar to the starry sky when he reached Dan equilibrium. It's very similar, Lu Qing thought, and a bold idea came to him. I can't feel the charm of the diagram, but I can directly imitate its state. Let's see if I can get some experience from it. Lu Qing immediately put his thoughts into action. He withdrew his qi and blood and balanced his ice and fire. The former was dark and cold, while the latter was heavy and hot. Together, they maintained the existence of the Starry Sky universe. For other Dan stage practitioners, they would have to expand their Dan force at this point. However, Lu Qing kept his consciousness at the top of the Starry Sky and controlled his fire force and chi and blood to shrink to the core, away from the darkness at the edge. This was to create a scene similar to the visualization diagram. This process was very difficult. When the contraction reached a certain level, Lu Qing, who was in the state of Dan equilibrium, didn't have enough strength to continue the operation. He repeated it over and over again, failing again and again. When he was nearing the end, he suddenly thought that he could find a helper, so he used force concentration again to shrink his fire force, chi and blood, and spirit. Just as he was about to reach his limit, Lu Qing suddenly triggered the Jin Dan in his lower abdomen and transferred a small amount of energy. The light instantly collapsed and sank into the core, distancing itself from the darkness. This allowed the Starry Sky to appear in a state similar to a visualization diagram. This state was out of balance and couldn't be maintained. Lu Qing suddenly exploded his Dan force and let the warmth return to his body. He then threw a cannon punch forward, pouring out the darkness. There was no cracking sound or banging sound. In front of his fist, large pieces of light blue ice crystals silently condensed in the void where the snow was falling. It was as if the air was solidified. This strange phenomenon disappeared in a flash. Lu Qing's whole body was sore and weak. He gasped for breath as he looked at the effect of the punch. He was a little happy. This power seems to be much stronger than the normal ice spirit force. I wonder if I can push it bit by bit without the help of the Jin Dan and achieve an effect of 30 to 40%? What should I call this self-created move? At this moment, the heavy metal door moved back and he walked in. Looking at Lu Qing, who was obviously not in good condition, he shook his head and laughed. You don't have to work so hard. This place is also yours. You'll have plenty of chances to come back in the future. Sooner or later you'll get something. I'm already getting something now. Lu Qing muttered and replied with a smile. Sect leader Martial Uncle is right. I'll keep this a secret until I can use a weaker version without the help of the Jin Dan. I'll let Taoist or Renli experience it in April. P.S. It's the end of the month. Looking for recommendation tickets and monthly tickets. Chapter 523. Are you going to stay in the sect for a few more days or go home directly? He asked with a smile as he walked along the corridor with his hands behind his back. Lu Qing recalled that his senior sister had gone to Guanwei for a competition and his master had gone to a secret military base for periodic treatment. I've already booked the tickets. Okay. He walked up the stairs and into the main hall of the Ice Queen Pavilion. I'll get Jingting to send you to the airport. No need to trouble Marshal Nisimo. Any disciple will do. Lu Qing blurted out. He always felt uneasy around that crafty superstar. What if she made use of him and created a scandal? Wouldn't that hurt Ku's feelings? She's free right now. What trouble is there to talk about? He picked up the phone and called Mo Jingting over. Lu Qing couldn't refuse good intentions. Since what was done couldn't be undone, he didn't say anything else. He just had to keep his distance later. Also, after that concert, Mo Jingting had clearly restrained herself from doing anything that could cause misunderstandings. While waiting, he unlocked his phone and said to Yenjika with a big smile, I've learned something from Vast Starry Sky, Absolute Frost today. Who knows, I might be able to create some new moves. Since it was midnight and the girl was still asleep, Lu Qing didn't wait for a reply and added, I plan to keep this a secret for now. We'll talk about it after I actually create something. Yeah, I can use this time to talk to Master about this and get some pointers. After a while, Mo Jingting arrived at the Ice Queen Pavilion with her car keys in hand. Her tight-fitting dark blue jeans accentuated her tall figure and slender legs. She casually put on a short beige jacket, and her straight hair casually draped over her shoulders. She looked more like a girl next door than a movie star. Young Martial Uncle, aren't you going to have dinner before you leave? She looked at everyone in a daze. Lu Qing's figure was reflected in her affectionate eyes. Lu Qing smiled politely. I'm in a hurry. I'll eat at the airport. Young Martial Uncle, you're so eager to go home. Mo Jingting teased him, acting like they were close friends. After getting into the car and fastening his seatbelt, Lu Qing recalled the past and explained to his wife with a snicker. Sect leader Martial Uncle asked Mo Jingting to send me to the airport. Now that I know that the rearview mirror can be controlled, I won't make any mistakes. Mo Jingting skillfully started the engine. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of Lu Cheng's upturned mouth. She couldn't help but ask curiously, "Young martial uncle, what are you laughing at? Did I drive the wrong way?" Driving posture. It's easy for people to misunderstand. Damn it, it's all those old drivers' fault for using the word driving so badly, Lu Qing thought to himself. He shook his head and laughed. I'm sharing something interesting with my leader. Oh. Mo Jingting seemed to have understood and tactfully stopped talking about this topic. After the car drove for a while, she looked ahead and suddenly said, "Young martial uncle, do you think I have a chance of reaching the dance stage?" Lu Qing immediately felt like an elder. After thinking for a while, he replied, "You're only in your 20s. There's still a long way to go before your qi and blood deteriorates. If you can settle down and bear the pain, it's not impossible." Mo Jingting had been accepted as a disciple of the Ice God sect. She had reached the level of professional ninth pin at such a young age, which showed that her talent was not bad. However, her ambition was not there, which was why she had not made any progress for a long time. After being in the entertainment circle for a few years, I realized that the dance stage is quite useful for me. Mo Jingting said with a smile. For example, I can strengthen my control over my body. My expression and acting skills can improve rapidly. The same goes for the aura of my singing. Most importantly, I can lock my qi and blood, control my skin and muscles, and slow down my aging. I'm really interested in reaching the dance stage. If I encounter any difficulties, young martial uncle, you have to help me. Your master is more senior than me, and there's also the sect master. How can I help? Lu Qing subconsciously rejected her request. Mo Jingting laughed softly and suddenly changed the topic. Senior Zhu Tai has been at the inhuman stage for a long time, but he's still stuck at professional fifth pin. He's almost 30 years old, so there's almost no hope for him to reach the physical invulnerability stage. Junior Lei Fang is almost 25 years old, but he still hasn't refined his root pulp and made a breakthrough. If this drags on for another 2 years, I feel that even if he does reach the dance stage, he won't have much spirit left. Lu Qing listened quietly to Mo Jingting talk about the situation of the people in the sect, occasionally interrupting. They arrived at the airport in Shanghai in a harmonious manner. Waving goodbye, Mo Jingting watched his back as he entered the departure hall. She retracted her gaze, smiled faintly and sighed. She picked up another phone, opened WeChat and glanced at it. This was the number she used to test men. Back then, Lei Fang had a soft spot for this little senior sister and started a passionate pursuit. Mo Jingting was a little tempted and wanted to give it a try. However, after being in the entertainment industry for so many years, she was used to seeing the ugly faces of men. She specially got a number, found a full set of third-rate photos, and registered a new WeChat account. After adding her circle of friends, she sent a friend request to her junior brother, which was easily accepted. In the subsequent conversations, Lei Fang was even more flirtatious and vulgar, which allowed her to see a different side of her junior brother. Since then, Mo Jingting had given up on the idea and only maintained a relatively ambiguous relationship with Lei Fang, unwilling to take the next step. After hearing that Yan Zhika had gone abroad to study, she thought of how her little senior uncle would be all alone and unable to sleep. On a whim, she used this WeChat account to test him again, wanting to expose his fake serious face. However, she glanced at her phone screen again. Her repeated pleas were like stones sinking into the sea. There was no response. Mo Jingting shook her head with a smile. She pushed the lever, released the foot brake, pressed the accelerator and turned the car onto the road. Little senior uncle seems to be a martial artist like an ascetic monk? Or maybe he doesn't have a strong desire for that. At the end of January, Xioshan Xing province. In the bright and clean new house, Qi Fang packed a pile of things. She patted her waist and said to her son, "This is for Zhika. Remember to take it with you later." Lu Qing looked at the sausages, bacon and glutinous rice cakes in the bag. The corner of his mouth twitched and said, "Mom, I'm afraid this won't pass the test." "Why not? You can set fire and explode, but you can still pass the test, right? How can they be better than you?" Qi Fang glared at him and retorted loudly. "Mom, you make so much sense that I can't refute." Lu Qing laughed and sighed. It took him a Herculean effort to persuade the stubborn middle-aged woman. Before leaving, Qi Fang said earnestly, "You have to treat Zhika well. She's a young girl, but she left her hometown for you. She can't even go home for Chinese New Year. She's all alone." On this matter, Lu Qing was suspected to be showing off his eloquence and embellishing the original story, so he didn't dare to say much. He nodded hurriedly and then changed the topic until he was chased out of the house by his impatient mother. Humming a melody silently, he happily got into the car and started to imagine his trip to America. Chinese New Year, my birthday, Valentine's Day, and our date anniversary. I wonder what kind of gift or surprise Zhika will give me. Anyway, I'm already prepared. This time I can give Aunt Du a holiday and let her come back to spend Chinese New Year with her son. I'll be her full-time bodyguard. Hee, does this count as the school bell's bodyguard? When the weekend comes, if I have the chance, I'll try to challenge the mighty ones of the Jianghu sect. I'll slowly familiarize myself with what I've learned and warm up for the national competition in April. I'll ask Spider to keep an eye on the Holy Top Church. If that scumbag Pavel dares to come out and commit a crime, I'll make sure he'll never be able to do anything bad again. His good mood was met with a not-so-good flight delay. Lu Qing arrived in Connecticut 5 hours later than expected. It was already 10 at night. The cold wind was howling and the snow was falling. Didn't I ask you to wait for me at home? I'm not a kid. I can find a car myself. Lu Qing replied to Yan Zhika on his phone as he walked out of the gate. It's late and cold. You still have class tomorrow. Yan Zhika replied with an emoji of lowering its head and smiling shyly. But I want to see my Qing first. Lu Qing was taken aback at first but soon broke into a smile. Stunned expression, wait, what did I see just now? My little fairy said something mushy to me. It's all because of you. Yan Zhika replied with grief and anger. After reading the message, Lu Qing didn't even have time to type when a white figure entered his eyes. The girl was wearing a long white down jacket and a light-colored knitted cap. Fluffy balls dangled from both sides of the cap to protect her ears. She was beautiful and cute. Their eyes met and looked at each other. Nothing needed to be said. In the office of the Department of Homeland Security, Smith thought he was finally free after not seeing a certain troublemaker for nearly 2 months. He started to learn Chinese with great interest. He stared blankly at the monitor screen and spat out 3 unfamiliar and strange syllables. Motherf asterisk her. P.S. There are only 2 days left at the end of the month. Remember to vote or it'll be a waste if you don't. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.